The GOP has released chat logs from the FBI, which show that the FBI knew the Hunter Biden laptop was real. And in a shocking story from the National Review, the FBI imposed a gag order on one of these agents who was trying to inform Twitter on the day of its release that, in fact, it was real. Strangely, at the same time, Intel officials or personnel of some sort were leaking to the press, notably the AP, that the story, in fact, was potentially Russian disinformation. And then 50 Intel officers or individuals, which you're aware of, rushed to the press to claim the story was, in fact, fake. The FBI knew the entire time the story was real. Now, why would they do this? Well, look, this is not the first time we've heard a story like this related to this. We knew that the intelligence agents knew exactly what they were doing and what they were talking about. And so it is quite interesting, to say the least. We're going to talk a bit about that. Plus, we've got a bunch of other stories in Seattle. We were going to go into this yesterday. We missed it. But about $47 million lost business as people are fleeing the city due to crime. And the DOJ is going to seek the death penalty for Luigi Mangione. There's a few other stories. Notably that Cory Booker has been on a 24-hour filibuster or speech. He's broken the record. And good for him, I suppose. Plus, we've got a MSNBC producer who's fled the country because of Donald Trump's fascism, and he's terrified Trump will pull his passport. Now, before we get into all that, my friends, head over to castbrew.com and buy some delicious Cast Brew coffee. Why don't you pick up some Appalachian Nights Rise with Roberto Jr., maybe some Stand Your Grounds. And Michael likes it.
I do.
Stand Your Grounds. It's a good one. It's a medium roast. And also, don't forget, head over to timcast.com, click Join Us to get into the Discord server. Don't just be a passive observer of the news and this culture war. Be an active participant. So when you're in this Discord server with over 20,000 individuals, you might have an idea that no one's thought of, and you're not going to know until you share that idea with everybody. So maybe you enter that conversation, you build upon these ideas, you build great works, you make a podcast, you make art, you get fit, whatever it might be. Just build those networks and have that conversation. Don't forget to also smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know if you really do like it. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Michael Malice.
Hi, everybody.
Who are you? What do you do?
Oh, you want me to introduce myself? Hi, I'm Michael Malice, host of You're Welcome with Michael Malice. My last book was called The White Tail, A Tale of Good and Evil. I'm going to be dropping another book at the end of the month, and we'll be back here to discuss it, and it'll be a lot of fun.
It is kind of hard to hear what you're saying.
Is that true? I wonder why that is.
Anyway, thanks for coming. Shane's hanging out.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Hello, Michael. Shane Cashman, host of Inverted World Live. Go live on YouTube and Rumble every Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Happy April Fools. Here to remind Phil that we definitely landed on the moon.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and counter-revolutionary. Let's go.
Here's a story from the National Review. FBI imposed gag order on analyst who told Twitter Hunter Biden laptop story was real. The FBI silenced an employee who tried to tell Twitter the Hunter Biden laptop story was real on the day it came out, newly released chat logs show. On October 14th, 2020, the day the New York Post first reported on the Hunter Biden laptop, the FBI told employees do not discuss the Biden matter and imposed a gag order on an analyst who tried to confirm the story's veracity to Twitter during a meeting, according to chat logs released by the House Judiciary Committee. An FBI official with the Bureau's Foreign Influence Task Force, Laura Demlow, previously testified that an analyst on call with Twitter confirmed the laptop was real before an attorney for the FBI told the social media platform it would not comment further. The chat logs show FBI personnel deliberating on how to handle the laptop situation. One FBI official instructed the rest to not discuss the Biden matter, and subsequent messages reiterated that order. After the meeting, the FBI placed a gag order on the analyst who was admonished by FBI staff for speaking up during the meeting. An FBI staffer lamented that the analyst won't shut up, as instructed, the chat logs show. The FBI has declined to comment. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Combine this with a story going back to, what's the date on this one? October 17th, 2020, titled Biden Email Episode Illustrates Risk to Trump from Giuliani. Now, instead of the AP saying explosive emails leaked, they were claiming that Giuliani was a liability, writing a New York tabloid's puzzling account about how it acquired emails purportedly from Joe Biden's son has raised some red flags. One of the biggest involves the source of the emails, Rudy Giuliani. Giuliani has traveled abroad looking for dirt on the Bidens, developing relationship with shadowy figures, including a Ukrainian lawmaker who U.S. officials have described as a Russian agent and part of a broader Russian effort to denigrate the Democratic presidential nominee. Yet Giuliani says foreign sources didn't provide the Hunter Biden emails. He says a laptop containing the emails and intimate photos was simply abandoned in a Delaware repair shop, and the shop owner reached out to Giuliani's lawyer. That's how the media framed it. We then, of course, saw the narrative. 50 intel agents and officials have come out and said it's a Russian disinformation campaign. Yet they knew the entire time. Now, it's important because I believe Facebook, Twitter, shut down this story. You couldn't share a link to the New York Post.
They shut down the Post entirely.
Yes.
Right.
Then and the New York Post, I believe, is what, the fourth oldest newspaper in the country.
Founded by Alexander Hamilton, yes.
And see how it's denigrated by the AP, calling it a New York tabloid. A puzzling account. How could this have happened? Now, the response from a lot of people is, why would they do this? This is not the first time we've heard the FBI was aware of what was going on and that intel officials were lying about it. Trump has revoked their security clearances. I think it's fairly obvious. The polls have shown that this laptop was very bad for Joe Biden. And there were several polls that came out showing had people gotten access to this story, it would have changed their opinion on how they were going to vote by a couple percentage points. And that couple points was enough to win Donald Trump the election. I think it's fair to say the FBI was shutting the story down because they sought to empower, protect, and push Joe Biden as president.
There's a lot. Can I say some things? Because there's a lot here to unpack.
Indeed.
First of all, as someone who's born in the Soviet Union, it shocks me that FBI agents would put this stuff in writing. Because I'm not kidding at all. Because these people are spooks. They know their jobs. They know once you put something in writing, it's really hard to get it out of existence, number one. We were never told what those hallmarks of Russian disinformation were. They use that term, hallmarks of Russian disinformation. What were these hallmarks? Like, what cues did you have? What, that he's shirtless, that he has a cigar? So there's just two things that at least don't pass the sniff test. And here's the other thing. I think everyone knew that when Kash Patel took over, the FBI was prepared for like a hostile takeover. But what they couldn't be prepared for is just leaking stuff for what they did. Stuff that was unambiguous. Not like deep hidden stuff, but stuff that they did in public and that they were never held accountable for. So I think this is just absolutely hilarious. And I think Trump is not going to stop. Because just recently when he talked about the pardons not being valid for Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, he's letting people know, I'm not letting you guys get away with what you pulled with me.
So it's your sense that he's going to actually go after these people?
I mean, don't you think he will?
I'm asking your opinion.
I think he's very clearly being vindictive in the best possible way when he's pulling security clearances, when he's going after law firms. And he believes, and he's right, that if you're going to abuse your power, unless you have consequences for it, you're going to do it again. And why wouldn't you?
So that being your opinion, do you think that there's what are the chances of him being successful in your estimation? Do you think that it's going to be railroaded by people in the FBI? Do you think that the FBI is going to be able to actually bring charges on people? Do you think that there's going to be evidence there?
My definition of success is going to be different from some people. Like, if my opinion, these people should be in jail for a very long time.
I agree completely.
I'm looking for that at all. But if you're someone who's an FBI official who has or officer, and that gives you a lot of status and heft, and you get to brag on all your friends, and you could be a lobbyist, if you're publicly disgraced and you never spend a day in jail, that to me is enough of a consequence, and I'll take what I can get.
You guys actually think the FBI would want to meddle in our elections?
I think that. Oh, okay, never mind.
I mean, have they ever done such a thing before?
I mean, the FBI and the CIA have been weaponized against the American people for maybe since they began.
Maybe I'm crazy, but my view is largely that the areas surrounding, and tell me if I'm crazy, Michael, the areas surrounding D.C. are like the capital city in the Hunger Games, where people don't really do real work. They're political operatives who get slush fund money from the government. The FBI and the CIA operate like police for nobility, restricting access of the regular folk from getting access to government so they can run this country as if it were a monarchy with them in power.
I think I'd tweak it a little bit because I really do think, especially under J. Edgar Hoover, I can't speak to more recently, they really regard themselves as above the presidency. Like, they were the nobility. Like, they had a lot of presidents under the thumb. They certainly have a lot of, to this day, senators, Congress people under their thumb. So they don't regard themselves as the bodyguards. They regard themselves as the power behind the throne, I think.
Yeah, like
I agree.
The shocking part of the JFK files that was just different angles of Operation Mongoose, where the CIA is secretly talking in rooms about destroying entire crops in Cuba with biowarfare. You know, it's not like they stopped doing that either. These guys are just extensions of the militant thugs.
And here's the other thing. Like, senators come and go, Congress people come and go, presidents, 8 years. They're playing the long game. Mm-hmm. And they're thinking long term. So they're much more entrenched as a aristocracy than any politician in a sense.
Yeah.
So Donald Trump is, for now, what have we seen directly targeting individuals like this in the bureaucracy? It's stripping security clearances.
Right.
The rumor is stripping their clearances is step one before arresting and prosecuting them. I don't know that we will see something like that. That seems pretty out there. I don't know. What do you think?
But, it does seem a little bit out there, but at the same time, if we went back in time and said, look, I know today Andrew Cuomo is America's governor, and he's going to be the replacement for Joe Biden in 2020, and I'm a Cuomo-sexual is what Trevor Noah was saying, and then in a few weeks, he's going to be driven from office, and no one's going to take his calls, and he's trying to return to power now. We wouldn't have seen that coming. So I think a lot of the stuff that Trump is doing now, none of us saw it coming. Yeah. The fact that he's repealing a DEI executive order from the Lyndon Johnson era, the fact that he's actually taking steps to dismantle the Department of Education, these are things where like, look, I'll take what I can get. If he closes the border, brings down the budget, it's a win. So we're not even 100 days in, and this is all uncharted territory, in my opinion.
Yeah, we deserve accountountability.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Michael. Like, there's so many things that have happened in my lifetime that were completely and totally outside of the realm of possibility. Donald Trump winning, to be honest with you, the first time was completely ridiculous. The idea that he would go away
or getting nominated.
Honestly, 100%. And the idea that he would go away and come back completely and totally outside of what most people would expect. Then the fact that he's actually carrying out a lot of the promises that he made, or at least attempting to, with the executive orders about the Department of Education, the executive orders about the creation of Doge, all of these things that other Republicans have sworn up and down they were going to do, and et cetera, et cetera. And I've said this, a couple days ago. These kind of things actually change what future presidents are going to have to do, because they're not going to be able to make these promises and just be like, oh no, I couldn't get it done. It's like, well, Donald Trump did, or did he at least try?
Let me say one more thing. Phil and I know spring chickens. This is the first president in either of our lifetimes who has over-delivered on his promises.
100%.
This has never happened before. It's not a thing.
I agree. I have issues. I have concerns. I'm curious what you think, Michael, about with these deportations. When it comes to constitutional rights of individuals in this country, the reason why they extend in a limited fashion to non-citizens is because if the government was allowed to say, you're not a citizen, so you're under arrest, then the rest of the rights don't apply, because they'll just use that as pretext every time they want to arrest you.
Yes.
There'd be no Fourth Amendment. They'd say, well, we arrested him on legal grounds. He was suspected of being an illegal immigrant. We're allowed to do that. Right. The problem then is Joe Biden lets in 10 to 20 million illegal immigrants, many criminals, and Donald Trump is going to extreme ends to try and get as many as he can deported from this country, and they're trying to use that to stop him. There's no middle ground. There's no fence. It's literally a razor's edge. Which side do you fall on? How do you deal with this?
Well, I think this is the middle ground. I think the actual side would be mass deportations. He's not really doing that at all. He's making it much harder to get in. He's making it harder to stay here. He's encouraging people to self-deport. But in terms of like the Eisenhower level, which I can't even say the name of it on the show, where they really rounded people up, what FDR did with Japanese Americans, we're not seeing anywhere near the numbers. So what we're seeing is the moderate position.
Yeah. That's a really good point. People, there have been far more extreme measures taken by previous presidents. Principled, fair enough. Principled measures taken by previous presidents than what Donald Trump is doing. I mean, look at the FDR. You mentioned the internment camps, but the FDR. The presidency, the changes that FDR made just through executive order, the things that he tried were completely unprecedented, and changed the structure of the federal government in ways that people prior to FDR never would have believed, and a lot of people would have totally rejected had it not been for the Great Depression.
And can I say one more thing? Sorry,
Sure,
I don't want to interrupt, but I can't tell who's talking.
It's all right.
If I tell this to people nowadays, they'll think it's a joke. FDR made it illegal to own gold.
Yeah.
You could have your wedding ring and like some jewelry, but it was illegal
They seized it.
for a citizen to own gold. And people hear this, they're like, ChatGPT, is he talking crazy? No, that literally happened, and it was Nixon who overturned that.
Yeah, so it was and it wasn't just a short period of time. It was literally from 1941 or something like that when FDR was elected. I think
He was 33 was he sworn in.
33. Okay, so from 33 until the 70s, LBJ, right?
A long time.
Nixon, I think it was.
Nixon. So that was it was in the 70s. So that was 30 years, 35 years, something like that.
And then 5 minutes before that, the money was redeemable in gold.
Yeah.
So if I had $1 and it was worth that much in gold, I could go to any bank and say, give me this in gold. And it went from that overnight, basically, to you can't have gold at all.
Yeah, the idea that the changes that Donald Trump is making are actually unprecedented is actually a lie intended to frighten people and get people to say, oh, these things are unacceptable behaviors by a president.
Oh, that's not how I'm saying. I think, Phil, it's unprecedented in our lifetime that a Republican is delivering on anything.
That's true, yes.
Democrats tend to over-deliver, though, to be honest.
How so?
Well, they at least I would say in my lifetime, to be fair, it's actually just one Democrat that I can talk about. Obama, he very much over-delivered on the amount of children that he killed and the war expansion. And
Oh, I see what you did there, Dad.
Ages.
he told us he would give us 0 dead Americans, and he gave us many.
Tim's been a dad for 5 minutes. He's doing dad jokes.
I mean, literally, the Obama administration did actually deliver something that the Democrats had been promising forever, even though it was a watered-down, terrible policy. The ACA was something that the Democrats have been talking about.
It's not socialized medicine like they wanted.
No, it ruined the market in the United States, and it's
It's
terrible.
not single payer, though. They were promising single payer.
No, true.
Trump making all these changes.
Oh, yeah. He didn't give, it is funny because what you get promised is not what they deliver.
Right.
But anybody who knows anything about what the presidents have done in this country for the past 30 years, Obama delivered exactly what was expected times 10.
Trump is attacking the system, and that's why these people are going insane right now.
Yeah.
You know what else I said? I said last year, I was on Rogan, and we talked about how Joe Biden had a body double because there's some footage where it looked like Joe Biden was much taller than Jill. And my thesis is this is Trump's body double because we sat through this guy for 4 years, and this is a completely different person.
The hair's a little
Perhaps.
different. Yeah.
Let's jump to this next story. We got this from CNBC. Ladies and gentlemen, big news. The DOJ is seeking the death penalty for Luigi Mangione in the Brian Thompson murder case. So I think this was expected. Attorney General Pam Bondi has ordered the Department of Justice prosecutors to seek the death penalty in the case against Luigi Mangione. Now, the question is, we know it was a cold blood. He was accused. There's two pieces of the story. One, I don't actually believe right now that Mangione is the guy. I still don't. I don't believe that.
You think he's a patsy?
Well, I don't know. We'll get into that. The other question I have, of course, is will leftists venerate him as a martyr, as they're already basically doing, should they pursue this? And the risk is then, in any kind of escalation, this is a story that they would seek quite like to inspire other extremists.
Yeah, they're going to bury him in a gold casket like they did with Floyd. They make martyrs out of these people.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that
bills after him, right?
I don't. Well, yeah, they didn't
where
even
was
build
that?
That's
In California?
which is.
Can I ask a question for everyone? Because
Please.
I'm sure everyone, I guess I know people with their opinions are going to be one or two things. Here's the real good question. And people hate these kind of questions because, like, would you rather have the flu or cancer? Like, it's two bad choices. I'll give you two bad choices. You have to pick one. Who would you regard as more of a hero? Luigi Mangione or George Floyd?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Mangione.
If it's the
Mangione.
question,
Right?
He didn't hold a pregnant woman hostage.
well, but we're not talking about the past of what we're talking about the key moment that they were in.
No, we're just talking about
in
which
general?
one of these people would you consider more of a heroic figure?
Yeah, Mangione.
Yeah, because
done, Michael.
Now,
George Floyd didn't do
I
anything.
must clarify. What we're saying is,
No clarification.
no, on a scale
Tim
of
Pool endorses Mangione murder.
on a scale of 0, negative 100 to positive 100, where anything in the negative spectrum is villainy and is not heroic, adding increments to it in any degree is more heroic than the other, then sure, we could put George Floyd at negative 50 and Mangione at negative 49. There's not a big difference between the two, in my opinion. But the question, I suppose, is that Mangione was driven by an ideological pursuit, and George Floyd was just a drug user behind the wheel of a car.
Sure.
So it's not so much that it's heroic; it's that his actions were politically motivated. So
I think I'm going to say this.
actually, I'm going to pause. I take it back. George Floyd.
I'm going to be very tactful. 'cause
George Floyd wasn't intending to destroy the world.
I don't,
So if we're basing it on a scale of not the actions you took for ideological reasons, but the amount of good you're doing in the world, Luigi Mangione is much, much lower on the scale than George Floyd was by simply George Floyd being a drug addict.
so let's have this debate because it's kind of a fun one because I think everyone in this room agrees that Luigi Mangione should be in jail and this guy's not a good guy. So we are all on the same page. That's our context, right? Broadly speaking. But I think I will defend it when kids wear those Che Guevara shirts. Because there's the idea of Che Guevara and there's the reality of Che Guevara. Just like for boomers, there's the idea of Reagan and the reality of Reagan, right? I think we all understand that.
Totally.
The idea of what Luigi Mangione did is very different from the reality because he didn't fix anything. The CEO got replaced in 5 minutes. The company didn't change their policies. No good, even by his own standards, follows the consequence except for a life being taken and people, if anything, having more sympathy for the healthcare companies than before. But the idea that when things get horribly wrong, it falls on people to take direct action, I think that is a very American idea. And I think that idea has something to it, to speak very tactfully.
I mean,
Indeed, I do have to say it, unfortunately, but Michael, nobody can hear what you're saying.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, damn it. Okay, what do we do?
Maybe put a little space between it so your voice can be heard.
Is this better?
No, but maybe
Is this worse?
Cut a hole into the mask.
Yeah,
That's gonna ruin the whole
You have a
thing.
box cutter.
it is, and I didn't want to say anything until the last minute, but basically everyone's saying they can't hear what
Okay,
you're saying.
I'm taking it off. I'm taking it off. I did the bit. I did
Did the bit.
I did the
You
bit.
can breathe.
Oh my God, the question is
Hey.
Michael Malice?
It's been Luigi Mangione the whole time.
I had no
Okay,
idea.
that's fine. I did the bit. Let's get back to the point I was just making, though. There is something to be said, and again, we have to be very tactful because I do think it's dangerous when you discuss these things on places with big audiences. Because if you have a million, Tim Ferriss had this great piece. He goes, look, things happen as a function of scale, right? If you think about how 1 in a million people are like literally crazy in the sense like they think they're married to you.
Yep.
If your audience has a million people and you say, hey, you should do something, one of those people is gonna do something very, very bad and crazy. So my point is, but there is something to be said for this idea of direct action. And John Locke talked about it. Thomas Jefferson talked about it. When things reach a point, at a certain point, it's like someone's like, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to put a stop to this once and for all.
The issue, I suppose, is I don't. So let's go back to the initial point of the debate. When I initially said Luigi, it was under this pretext of a man, as you're describing, driven to do something about what he perceives as a problem, is more heroic than a drug addict. But when I actually map it out on a scale of goodness and heroism, George Floyd wins easily. The act of a guy sitting on a park bench with his finger up his nose is more heroic than Luigi Mangione. You can argue that, I suppose the definition of how you're using heroic is what I would contest. Heroic, in my mind, is for the betterment of society, altruistic.
Oh, I don't think that at all. Sorry.
So by heroic, you just mean someone who's willing to take action.
In pursuit of his values.
And are you using just the moment?
But what if his values are to like genocide a group of people?
Well, I mean, it's going to be hard to do it by yourself. I don't think his values are entirely wrong. I think at a certain point when you're dealing with a system that is a very what?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, I think and again, I'm speaking broadly. I'm not speaking about his specifics. I do not agree with him at all in this case. But I think in certain, like if you look at things with the nursing homes, I'm surprised that no one did something similar. When you have a system and you've tried here's an example that everyone in the audience will be able to understand. If you have a dad, and this dad learns that someone did something to their kid, right? There's been many cases like this, and the dad's like, you know what? The guy got acquitted. I'm not going to go to meet my maker without having to do something about it. I think that dad is a heroic figure.
I disagree.
Like the video of the guy
disagree.
who took out the person.
Gary
who
Plauché.
killed-
Yeah,
right,
I disagree.
Might have pronounced his last name.
I disagree because it's not black and white. It's not yes or no. The reason why I'd say Luigi Mangione is not a hero, he's a villain. Because what you're describing is the backstory of villainy, the same as it could be for heroism.
Sure, that's true.
And so the question is what they did.
Don't tell me what the question is. I know what the question is.
Indeed. In this regard, we are wondering, was the outcome of what he did for the betterment of society? I would argue the inverse. He's a villain.
I agree with you. It wasn't for the betterment of society because
He's a villain.
by his own standards,
It's a villainy.
Okay, by his own standards, he didn't accomplish what he wanted. Now that I have the master, I can tell more. A husband died. People have more sympathy for the healthcare companies. It's not like his mom got better. Like none of his goals got checked off.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Broadly speaking, though, I think there's something admirable where someone is like, not him, in cases where like the law failed me, I'm not just going to sit on my hands.
But you're talking about if we step back from this story, way back.
Yes.
To the point where there was a young man who said, I have been injured and ruined by this failed industry.
Right.
At that point, and he said, I will stop at nothing to fix this system.
Oh, no, just to destroy the system.
And right.
Sure.
At that point, you have a spark of motivation.
Sure. Yes.
Whether he goes down the dark path or the light path is where we determine whether he's heroic or villainous.
Sure. That's fair.
And he went the villainous path.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So my point is,
But I think George Floyd it's very hard to have anything heroic about him.
Yeah.
my argument would be doing nothing is more heroic than what Luigi Mangione did.
I think
I'll put it this way.
Okay.
Let me say this. A woman gets her purse snatched,
Sure.
and there's a guy sitting on the bench chewing on a speedball whacked out of his mind.
Speedball. What the fuck?
That's what George Floyd was chewing on.
Oh, okay.
It was meth and fentanyl, I believe.
that a
combined.
thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's called a speedball.
Man, I'm old.
So he
Did
was,
you know about this,
so
Phil?
George Floyd was behind the wheel of a car chewing on a speedball.
Okay.
That's why they pulled him
Sure,
out.
sure.
This guy's whacked out of his mind. Woman gets her purse stolen, and there's a guy sitting on a bench chewing on a speedball who watches it happen as she runs screaming. Who's more heroic The guy who stole the purse and ran off, or the guy sitting on the bench doing nothing? Well, the issue is on a scale from villainy to heroism, as you become more villainous, you're dropping lower on that scale away from heroic. The guy sitting on the bench doing nothing is closer to a hero than the villain who stole the purse.
The villain who stole the purse isn't being guided by any sort of a principle.
He needs the money because his daughter's sick and he has to buy Tamiflu.
Well, I mean, that's a very bad way to get money, is some lady's purse.
It's a very bad way to stop the healthcare industry.
Yeah, but I'm sure. But my point is, I think it is. I don't know how to put this tactfully. And again, if people are going to hear that I'm defending him, I'm trying to take out the context of what he did specifically. I think, broadly speaking, America would be better served if more people were, instead of sitting on their hands, were like, this stops with me. And I think if more people did that in their communities, a lot less bullshit would be. A lot less crap would have gotten away with.
But we're not talking about. I'm trying to be very academic here. Developmentally disabled individuals doing random acts of violence that don't actually solve any problems.
Correct.
When I say be an active participant, I'm talking to our fans to literally go to a bar or a pub and sit down with like-minded individuals and organize.
I love it. Like, cannot endorse that more.
So, and I explain it like this. The last thing, you know I'm a fan of? I was talking about how I love these Jason Statham movies where he basically just goes around just beating the crap out of people because they're always him saying, please leave me alone. Like Beekeeper.
Yeah.
He retires, he's minding his own business, and they bring the problem to him. I love John Wick. You know why? He's a crazy, he's Baba Yaga. He's dangerous. But he says,
she's not crazy. You keep her name out of your mouth.
Sure. But that's Keanu Reeves' character in John Wick.
Is Baba Yaga?
Yes.
Do you know what that is?
Yeah, the witch.
Yeah, from Russian.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So they call Keanu Reeves in the movie Baba Yaga.
Oh, that's bizarre. Okay.
Sure. And he's minding his own business. He lost his wife. He has a dog. And they came to him. And then he unleashed hell upon them.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with you.
The idea of the good man who doesn't instigate the conflict.
Yes.
So what I want to see from the American people is, let's go to COVID times, lockdowns.
Right.
If the American...
we're on the same page now. Yep.
All the American people need do is say, ha, 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 when they tried locking him down. And that was the end of it.
Okay, let me take 2 more points. I'm saying, broadly speaking, it's a good thing in any country when people who are powerful are a little scared.
I agree.
Totally agree.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and are a little uncomfortable. I think that's a very healthy. Because you know what? We're scared. You've gotten swatted. Like I'm in Austin now. I sleep with a firearm under my bed. I think it's a good thing that I know that if poop hits the fan, I have to rely on me. I think that's a very healthy for any man in this country to have that position.
And the point I think you're getting at, what I'm trying to get at is, we are the people sitting at the bar saying, "Bro, we don't want to fight. Please leave us alone."
Yes. And
what could change everything is if the guy who walks in the bar looking for a fight. How about this? Deadpool. It's always got to be a movie with me. I'm sorry. When the bad guys walk into the bar looking for Wade and they shove that guy up against the wall, everyone in the bar stands up and points guns at the bad guys and they say, okay, and they leave. There's no fight. They understood. Nobody will tolerate what you're doing. If during COVID, they said, we're locking everybody down. If everybody, not even everybody, if 20, 30% just kept doing their normal daily business, nothing would have shut down.
I'm going to take us 2 steps further. There was a video I saw, I think it was Brazil, where someone tried to rob a convenience store and like 5 people drew on him and made it into Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
And a fan of mine retweeted, goes, this is the side I want to live in. And I completely agree with that. Because as Giuliani showed.
I do not.
No, because it's a small percentage of people making 90% of the problem. Once you do that in like 2 weeks, everything is fine, number one. But number 2 is, I'm just going to say another point. One of the things that stopped prohibition, and this is not really, they sweep this on the rug, is enough police were having things done to them. They're like, I'm not doing this anymore. So if that had happened in COVID, if enough cops were like, I'm not sticking my neck out for something I don't believe in, the politicians would be powerless.
And my point is, I don't want to live in a society where a guy robs a grocery store. I understand your point. In the event someone does, you want society to say we don't tolerate this.
That's right.
I think it's possible, and we have to strive for a point where we are men of action, we are armed, we defend those against us, but no one dare do it in the first place.
Sure.
We get beyond that. And so with the police, we don't need Antifa to go around ACABing. What we need is for when a cop who, there was a story that I recorded for today, it's actually going to go up Friday, where they arrested a woman because her 10-year-old son walked to the grocery store. Did you see this story?
Oh, God.
And it was a lady cop, and she showed up and said, "You're under arrest because your son was by himself." That woman should never be allowed to buy a cup of coffee. Nobody needs to go to her house. Nobody needs to do anything like that. It should be a function of society that when you violate.
Wait. You agree that the mom should be in trouble?
No, I'm saying the lady cop.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said lady. I think you meant the mom.
Yeah, the lady
Okay, yeah,
cop.
of course. Yes, correct. Yes. Okay. Yes. Same page. Sorry.
When she walks in a
Yes,
Dollar
of
General,
course.
they should say, "Get out."
Yes.
And she's like, "But I need groceries." That's
That's
bad.
fine. You can get it wherever you want, just not here.
Exactly. And so the left is really good at that.
Yes.
They did it with cancel culture.
Yes.
So ultimately, my point is, I really don't like that there are a lot of conservatives that venerate violence as though it is the choice. Like people say things like, when we did the story on Tesla and the guy pulls in front of the lady and screams at her. And then I hear from people saying, "I don't ever get lucky like that." And I'm like, bro, I'm sure there's a lot of combat vets that might have this mentality. Almost all the people I know who have been in life or death situations wished it never happened, where they had to confront someone with violence in that way. We don't want that. I once saw a guy. I know there's people out there who know it way more than I do because
Sure, of course.
when I was covering conflict and crisis, I watched a guy get shot and killed.
Oh God.
And the feeling you get watching that happen is terrifying.
You mean because it won't go down?
The
Priapism?
okay. I've also seen a man get his legs turned into ground beef in a car accident.
Oh my God.
And what I will say to this is, when I was younger, my dad, who was a firefighter and responded to deaths and people dying, explained that there's something about it people don't know unless you see it. Like, it's something that is an EMT,
Right,
first
that's
responder.
right.
I was driving once and I was directly right at a scene of an accident. Again, I've watched people die in conflict. There was one person I've seen die, got shot in Egypt.
Oh God.
And in driving down the road going from New York to DC, there was a car accident years ago where a guy flew out of the car, landed on the ground, and I saw him lift his legs, and it was what looked like, I'm sorry to be crude or crass, ground chuck. And the feeling that I got, there's no word for. And I think it's because most people in this country have never experienced that feeling of watching extreme graphic injuries right in front of them. But it was a unique emotion that I don't have a word for. And so when people glorify this stuff and make these jokes where they're like, "I wish I got lucky," and no, you don't.
It's funny because when people yell at me, "Oh, you're an anarchist, like you want this," I go, no. I'm an anarchist because this is the thing I want the least. I think when you have a society where it's a given that everyone looks out for each other on the street, you're responsible for your community, and so things like this, you don't have to, and the police, you have security that is accountable and reliable. This happens less and less.
Just on a practical level, like this, we're the conversation that has kind of revolved around the psychological toll that stuff that takes on a human being when you see those kind of things. Just on a practical level, even if you're psychologically a tough person, if you engage with someone like that, you're going to have to spend an immense amount of money defending yourself in most states.
That's right.
You're going to have to deal with all kinds of they're going to arrest you. It's going to be a huge problem, and not to minimize what you guys are talking about, the psychological stress at all, but there is no positive that comes from getting into an engagement like that at all.
I saw a body camera video from police,
I've been watching a lot of those.
and the cops were fired on, and the cop fired back and killed the guy. And the video was of the cop crying.
Oh yeah.
I don't think people understand the feeling you get, and far be it from me to know, but I'm sure, again, there's probably some combat guys out there who are carved out of stone and are just stone faced in this, but the stories I hear from most people is it's a feeling you don't want.
Can we talk about this at some length? Because I've been thinking about this a lot
Let me do this. I'll preface it with this story because this goes into it. This is a tweet that I put up. We have this story that was posted today to r/conservative from an individual, and maybe this is not true, but I think the story is more likely to be true than not. But again, take it with a grain of salt. This guy says, "This is how you lose the average vote." It's Cartridge Crusader 23, a top poster on the conservative subreddit. He said, "The leftists who are now attacking anyone who owns a Tesla are starting to affect people I actually know. A friend's father has owned a Tesla for years, long before all this Elon Musk hysteria kicked off. And he's definitely not someone I describe as a MAGA Republican by any stretch. He's a kind, older guy, an Air Force veteran who now flies for Southwest Airlines. He was driving in Arizona, minding his own business, when a random motorcyclist cut him off, pulled in front of his car at a four-line intersection at a red light, kicked his bike stand, and started approaching the vehicle while yelling. That's when my friend's dad pulled his handgun, to deter the guy from attacking his car. The gentleman then proceeded to pull out his phone, record the vehicle, and prevented him from leaving the intersection when the lights turned green. He goes on to tell the story. Basically, there's no escalation of conflict, no escalation of violence. It's a crazy story. He says that the man didn't want to press charges on the guy on the motorbike. Many people in the Reddit are advocating that he do this. Two things I want to mention in this. In the first, the obvious. Most of the stories that we're hearing about the Tesla attacks, this is this is the tip of the needle. This is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Most of the people who are having this happen to them, they're probably not recording the videos and posting it. They're probably just sitting there dumbfounded, like, I can't believe someone threw a rocket in my car.
Yeah.
The other thing to point out is this guy, according to the story, pulled a gun. And if these leftists keep up their attacks, some have been mass shootings. The guy in Vegas with a rifle fired into the air at the building, and then into vehicles before throwing firebombs. Someone is going to get seriously hurt. The left does not care. This is what my concern is, because the right is not calling for this, not advocating for it. And even on shows like this, we keep saying, please, you do not want the violence.
That's right.
And as we've talked about the escalation of unrest throughout the past 7 years, most of the people that I've brought on mention this. You do not want civil war. You do not want the unrest. People don't understand how bad it really can get. They think it's like movies. Right. People think war is this faraway land, and they need to look at what happened in Aleppo when a normal city.
What's Aleppo?
Honestly, I don't know. Yeah, Gary. This city, the photos from Aleppo. It is funny that this is. It is kind of funny that this is a great example of this, and Gary Johnson didn't know.
Yeah.
Everybody.
But just to clarify, the photos of Aleppo, of this beautiful town, normal shopping district, cars and fountains, and then you do a side-by-side, and it's rubble and ash.
Can I? Sorry, go ahead, Phil, please.
Well, just the people that talk about, wanting that kind of conflict here, they need to understand that what it'll look like is cartel violence in Mexico. That's what it would look like. It wouldn't look like North and South. That's what people think of when you hear like phrases like civil war and stuff like that. They think that it would be, somehow they'd be insulated.
Wasn't particularly nice either.
No, it wasn't at all. 100%. And I don't mean to minimize that, but it'll look like, it'll look like cartel violence. It'll look like you find out that your cousin, his body was found in a landfill, brutally tortured.
So one of the reasons I wrote my last book, The White Pill, which is about the story of the rise and fall of the Soviet Union, is I'm very disturbed, and I'm sure everyone here agrees, with the fact that war victories are glorified, but when you have a war victory that's peaceful, it's kind of like, that was kind of cool. Yeah. And it's like, isn't it better that the Cold War ended peacefully?
Absolutely.
And everyone kind of went home and things didn't work out that well for Russia, as opposed to like invasions, thousands of civilians killed, people made orphans, dismembered, maimed, and so forth, like World War I and World War II. And I thought it was just very sad that story isn't told, and this happened within, our lifetimes. I also, to your other point, it's just, I know a lot of guys who are veterans. Everyone here, I'm sure, does as well. And they do not ever think this stuff is like, more war.
Yeah.
I had Meghan McCain on my show, obviously John McCain's daughter. She's as hawkish as you get. And she's like, and she's besties with Tulsi now. And she says, I've changed my opinion on war. Even though she still supports, what's going on in Israel and Ukraine. I go, what do you mean? She goes, because my brothers have all deployed. And now they're like the most anti-war people ever. And they're like, they'll do anything to avoid war. She goes, when I hear from them, she's like, I know this means something. And when you talk to all of us who talk to veterans, they don't, when they talk about people they've killed, they're not like, hell yeah. Like some of them are, maybe that's a bit of like pride. But then on some level, everyone who talks about this, it's not easy on just an animal level.
I've been told it's disrespectful to bring up in the presence.
Depending on who and what.
And again, I'm not a veteran. I don't know.
I grew up next to a military base, so I saw a lot of people who were deployed and come back, and the majority of them don't come back the same. Like they're psychologically messed up. I knew there's suicides and drinking, drugs, and all this stuff. Obviously, some come back and they can live in the real life.
Mm-hmm.
They can manage
Let's
sort
look
of
at it this
balanced
way.
life.
Do you think you would be fine if you had to just kill rabid dogs?
Right.
No.
Like, the dog has to be put down. It's not a human being. It's going to do a number on you.
Bro, let me tell you about Brother Malice. We had when we have critters on the property.
Yeah.
It's like the local laws require. My understanding is that if there's a raccoon on the property, it has to be put down because of the rabies vector. How many people actually want? You know what? Let's not even go there. How many people actually wanted to kill and slaughter the chickens to eat them?
Right.
It's remarkable to me how very few people don't even want to do that.
Right.
Now, I got to be honest. I'd have no problem going to a farm and saying, I got one of my chickens from Chicken City. It is food.
Sure.
We joke around about them, but they're there for a reason. Largely, they're not broilers or layers, so we don't really eat them. But we did eat the roosters. But I'll eat an animal. I'll deal with that. I don't think, I think a lot of people, especially these young leftists, they haven't lost anybody. A lot of them haven't. When I was younger, I had a few people in my neighborhood who died, and when I was a teenager, and it was a crazy feeling, like that dude is just gone, just doesn't exist anymore. But I think most young people don't experience this. And then what was really, really crazy to me was, as I started getting older, as most people already know, and who are older than me, people start dying more and more and more.
I asked Roseanne about that in this show. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's not fun.
hearing on Facebook that a guy that I used to skateboard with died,
Yeah.
and we don't know how. He just died suddenly one night on Thanksgiving. Went to bed and didn't wake up. And it's like, that dude's just gone?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of younger people who have experienced less death. And then I think for the older people who tend to be more experienced dealing with conflict crisis, this is why I think a lot of the young leftists are so gung-ho on violence. They're, for one, the young guys are either bored, faithless, or full of testosterone, and they haven't seen it. And then when they get older and they watch a bullet fly through the head of their best friend while they're at war, it changes their perspective on things when they come home.
And leftists in America were rewarded for their violence just a few years ago.
And to this day.
They're cheered
rewarded
for on
today,
TV.
yeah.
Yep.
So, but I got to counter this because there's a story I saw recently which has been haunting me for weeks. So there was this mom, I don't remember where it is. I saw this, it's a YouTube, one of these true crime things. A mom had two kids, two teenagers. One was like, let's say 13, one was like 17. The 13-year-old was only allowed to sleep in this little, not even a cubicle under the stairs. He was forced to sit with his hands on his head for hours with motion detectors. If he moved at all, they threw him in an ice bath for hours. He had no body fat. The only food he was allowed to eat was bread with like the hottest hot sauce. And they just tortured this kid, and then eventually it was an end to him. And I read this story, and I'm not a tough person. I'm not pretending to be a tough person. I'm probably the least tough person in this room. I knew with every fiber of my being that I would have no problem terminating the mom and the other kid, and wouldn't even think about it. It would be like flushing the toilet. And this kind of disturbed me because I also agree with these, like the soldiers, do this. They're haunted. I'm like, how do I know? And I put in my support group, malice.locals.com, and one of my supporters goes, at a certain level, it's like caveman brain. Like children are threatened. Here comes a lion. It's just a threat. But here's something else. What this made me realize is that when we talk about evil in this country, there's two types. There's the kind of thing like I robbed a bank, I'm a murderer, I assaulted a woman, which we could all understand the logic there. I hate this person, now he's gone. I want money in this bank, I have it. But stuff like this, where it makes no sense, things that are being done to kids, we hear these people, CNN producers getting arrested for videos of children. I'm not even going to get into it.
This has to stop. This has to stop.
But it's also like, this is a kind of evil that is completely alien. It's very fundamentally different from someone who's even just like an armed robber.
Yeah.
My concern always comes down to structures of government, in why I want to just say, look, I think the best outcome we have is calm and collected law enforcement, or whatever form that takes. Be a
Sure,
community,
security, yeah.
apprehending those parents without anyone dying. Now, by all means, call them evil, demand retribution in whatever form it takes, but apprehending them, exposing what they've done, making sure everyone understands the punishment for doing such a thing. But my concern always comes back to, when we glorify vigilante justice, the reason why we don't is not because we're some whiny babies. It's because vigilantes, they beat innocent people.
Sure.
They get it wrong. And so you encounter a scenario where you go into a house and there's a kid being tortured, and you see a man, standing in the living room, and then you say, and you attack him. And it turns out that was the neighbor who just showed up hearing the kid's cries. So what to say? So it's.
But in this case, I mean, there's text messages going back. This is not.
But I'm saying that goes to law enforcement. What I'm saying
he
is,
died.
Like
The mom called the cops and was like, "Oh, he's not waking up."
So she was just that insane.
No, she wasn't insane, but she has a dead kid on her hands. What is she going to do?
Because there's other families that hid kids and bury them,
Yes.
like having their basements for 20 years. And
Oh God, I didn't even think about
The point is that it's handled by a system of law enforcement or judiciary, or if it's a small community, then there is a calm and rational decision. Are you familiar with the story of Gellert's grave?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna butcher the story because I'm not Welsh, but I really want to make this short film. So the simple version is this, and to all the Welsh fans of the show, you can yell at me in the comments. Prince Wayland of Wales. See, I already ruined it. There you go. Story's over. His son in his crib in his house, and he decides
with the dog, with the wolfhound.
He leaves his. Let me. I'll just tell the
I
story
thought
real
this
quick.
is Ireland.
I'm pretty sure it was Wales.
Isn't the whole story the Irish wolfhound?
Let me tell the story, and then you can let me know.
Okay.
So my understanding is, Gellert, the faithful hound. What's going on? Okay. So Prince Wayland
Yeah.
in his house, his son's in the crib. He's got to go out and forage, collect resources, wood, whatever. So he leaves his faithful hound Gellert at his house while he goes about his business. Upon arriving to his hut, his cabin, he sees that his door is burst open.
Yep.
He runs inside and he sees all of his belongings scattered and flipped over. In a panic, he runs to his son's crib where he sees it flipped over and blood everywhere. He panics. Just then, his faithful hound Gellert walks up with blood dripping from his mouth. Angry that Gellert had slain his son while he was away, he draws his sword and thrusts it into the side of his hound, who lets out a dying whelp, which awakens his child. Wayland then flips over the crib to find his son completely healthy, and next to him the wolf that was slain by Gellert, who saved his son's life. And they say after that day,
Right.
he never smiled again.
Yes.
That story means a lot. We don't jump to conclusions. We have to keep cool heads about these things.
Sure. But what I'm saying is there's many cases where the cool head is like, all right, justice is not prevail in the situation.
And in the United States, they brought back, I think, the firing squad in Alabama, because our laws determined that there are some people who have been found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of crimes so horrific, they have forfeited their lives.
Can I ask a question? Because this is something sometimes there's this, something people say and everyone seems to smile and nod. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, how do I not understand this? Because this is one of those stories. There was a case, I think it was Arkansas. Ricky Jane Bobby, I think the guy's name was, something like that. He was mentally disabled. He killed or at least a couple of people. And when they were going to give him the death penalty, he had his last meal. He goes, I'm going to save some for this for later. Like, he clearly didn't understand what was happening to him.
Right.
And people were like, this is so crazy. You're giving him a death penalty. He didn't understand what he did. And for me, it's like, isn't this the first person you'd give the death penalty to? Because there's no possibility that this guy will ever be allowed on the streets safely, as opposed to someone who's like, okay, I did something horrible and maybe I can't be allowed in the streets, but at least I can, advocate to people in jail and preach to kids and learn from my story. I never understood why that would be the last person you'd want to give the death penalty.
There's the moral and there's the mechanical functions or issues pertaining to the death penalty.
Okay, go ahead.
In the context of, here's a man who can never be made right,
Right.
will always be evil.
Right. Or
Then-
dangerous, at least.
So I'm opposed to death penalty, death
Okay.
penalty, and it's for mechanical reasons. The moral reasons I completely understand. A man harming a child, or they're going to cause great bodily harm.
Sure.
Self-defense exists in this country for the defense of others, all the same.
Sure.
The mechanical problem is that Kamala Harris walks up to you and says, "Trust me, that guy deserves to die," and then this nation largely just says, "Okay, Kamala."
I'm opposed to death penalty in that regard as well. I'm just saying, in a case like this, why would this be the last person you'd want?
Right.
I don't understand that.
From a moral perspective, I agree.
But other people don't, and I don't understand why they are opposed to this.
I thought that was the function of the death penalty was you are beyond rehabilitation.
Are they
No,
finding
because-
sympathy in him?
I don't get it.
somehow?
That's
They
why I'm
think
asking.
they're doing-
I literally don't get it.
They find. I think the thought process is they find sympathy because this person didn't understand
Right.
that what they were doing was evil.
It's like Lenin out of Mice and Men, but they
Right.
don't do.
But you do.
happened?
You have to. Like,
Well,
don't
I mean,
get
if
it.
you believe in the death penalty.
So
Right.
Yes.
but the argument is that person can't be allowed in society again.
Right.
So they should be kept in. They shouldn't be let go. But killing them is immoral because they didn't understand what they were doing. So there's no malice in it.
But it's,
Pardon my friend.
but
My
it's like taking
framing.
care of a
Right.
rabid animal.
right.
So
why?
actually,
Undoing it.
right.
now
yeah.
now we're dealing with logic versus emotion. The emotional individual says, but he had no idea he did wrong, thus there's no malice, so he can't be mad. That's emotional.
I'm not mad at all.
I'm saying you are logical.
In these cases, like, I'm not mad. I'm like, this is a problem. It can never be fixed.
But this is the point. You're approaching it logically.
Sure.
Here is a man who has done harm. He cannot be fixed. unfortunately, this is not it is dispassionate that this man faces the
Right.
death penalty.
I'm not at all gleeful.
My point is the people who are upset about it are approaching it emotionally, saying he didn't know he did bad, so we can't. It's an emotional reaction. It's illogical.
Okay, I'm glad you're with me because it makes no sense to me and I've never understood it.
Let's jump to this next story from the Daily Mail.
Great.
MSNBC pundit flees to Canada after warning about Trump fascism.
You should drive a truck there.
A fascism expert is leaving the U.S. for Canada over fears of Trump. Jason
Wait a
Stanley.
minute, wait, I got to interrupt. Okay, I got to interrupt because this is germane. So a lot of times when they mention an expert, it's some random you've never heard of. This guy is one of the biggest tools on Twitter. He wrote books about fascism. He is like Blue Skies, what would become the Blue Sky crowd, go-to guy regarding fascism. So if he's fleeing, this is like a big scalp.
Yes.
You mean it's good news that more liberals will leave the country and go to Canada like we asked?
Maybe he'll sign up
Not
for
just
the MAID
liberals.
program.
Like this guy is an academic. He is like the patient zero of like I can't.
fascism?
EDS.
Yeah.
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 Can I say the S word?
Well, we try not to.
Okay, then I won't. That's fine. Okay.
Just
I was
because-
going to say S-lib. That's why. Yeah.
You know,
that's fair.
Just for clarity for those watching, people watching their TVs with their kids in the living room.
Yep,
so
that's
it's a
fine.
news show.
That's why I asked. Yeah.
Although I'm not sure that's always appropriate. But curiously,
Oh, wow, this is a big because he's from Colombia. He had a posh gig.
yeah, he's fleeing.
Good.
It's great.
Yeah.
I think
Man, this is making me rethink my opinion on voting.
I
Because if I could vote and have people like him flee, I'm like, I don't know, guys.
Self-deport.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an actual positive result.
so.
This is better than Rosie O'Donnell. I'm serious.
Far better. Far better.
Great. I was thinking about this earlier today with Trump derangement syndrome, Elon derangement syndrome, Tesla derangement syndrome. I'm like, I think there's a certain point we just need to create a different word that encompasses the fact that the liberal cult are typically deranged. So Trump derangement syndrome does not get at it.
Wait, hold on. But Trump derangement syndrome is not exclusive to liberals.
Indeed. But I think that overwhelmingly those who are suffering TDS are suffering EDS and TDS squared.
I have EDS.
What is? I think I know what EDS is.
You definitely know. You got the remains.
So you've got Elon derangement syndrome. You've got Tesla derangement syndrome. You've got Trump derangement syndrome.
Yep.
Now you've got derangement syndrome
I'm going to
for
disagree.
all of these
'cause
people.
It's not Tesla derangement syndrome, because here's how you know it's derangement syndrome. I was with my friend Steph in Japan last year, one of the greatest experiences of my life. Everyone, if you're thinking about going to Japan, I promise you'll love it.
best.
It blew my mind. I really wanted to hate it.
That was the first time going?
Yes.
It
I
is.
wanted to hate it. I'm like, you guys brought me over.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's
And
so
one of the
good.
best things is I turn to her, I go, isn't it great being a country where you know people aren't going to bring up Trump for no reason? And I think that's a key part of TDS is no matter what you're talking about, somehow the conversation revolves around Trump. That hasn't happened with Elon or Tesla. And it's not happening now in Trump now. It's not always happening.
I always bring a bottle of Trump wine to family holidays. I did not think
Jason Stanley's such a big deal.
you are so happy.
I've
really
got
good.
I'm saying with him on Twitter, he's so disingenuous and so because it's so like, you know, fascism defined by having an outgroup as opposed to what ideology? Like what government doesn't have America was founded on being anti-monarchist. You know, you have the Democrats, lowercase d, against an aristocracy or an overclass. Anarchists are against the government. Communists are against the bourgeoisie. Everyone has an outgroup.
This was this is basically just the conversation I've been having over the past several weeks. And we actually just had a moment ago on the Green Room show, which you can watch on rumble.com/Timcast IRL. I don't actually think these isms, for the most part, and these ideas matter as much. They are an individual who's a communist. It's not one for one. It's not one day you go, I'm a communist, and then you instantly are rigidly in line with everything all communists believe. So the real issue then is just this gradient of amoral to moral in the way that we view it. So when this guy says they're fascists, he exemplifies exactly what my point is. What does that mean? Just means bad guy.
No, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you because he does have a bullet point list. Yeah. But what I'm saying is this bullet point list is not at all exclusive to fascism the way he defined it to me.
That's my point.
Yeah.
He's not actually defining what fascism was academically, what it related to, because it doesn't exist right now.
Right. Do you know what else? One more thing, I'm sorry. If you read the Antifa, this was fascinating to me. I like reading what other people have to say because I'm like, let me understand the thought process. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. I read the Antifa handbook. Have you read it?
Yes.
he makes it a point, the author, I forget his name, apologies, to point out that who was the head of Spain? I'm blanking his name. Francisco Franco,
okay.
was not a fascist. He was a Catholic nationalist, but Trump is. I'm like, hold on.
To be fair, I have not read that in a very, very long time.
But the point is, like, what kind of logical leaps do you have to do that Franco is less of an authoritarian than Trump, who's the worst thing he did was bitched and moaned for 4 years that they stole the election from him.
Yeah.
Franco didn't have elections. He killed people, locked people up. Trump never did that. It was just fascinating. And he said this with a straight face. I'm like, you're defending Franco? If there's one person where I'm like, okay, like, fine, I'll give it to you. Franco. It was fascinating.
It's ridiculous, though. I mean, this guy in particular, I'm familiar with his tweets, and it is like you mentioned, it's a great scalp to have. And
this is the point that I wanted to get to for you, Michael.
Oh, I'm so happy.
In this country,
wait, is this an April Fool's? If you so, you got me. If this is my April Fool's, I will burn down this compound.
Maybe.
I'm gonna go Luigi.
Okay. We were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
That how did you describe it? You said laws are only what
the law is whatever those in power decide it is at any given moment. Nothing more, nothing less.
This is what the left has been operating on for quite some time.
Yes.
The late David Graeber, are you familiar with his work?
I'm not.
They called him the anarchist anthropologist.
Oh, okay.
And he hated being called that, but he was one of the original organizers of Occupy Wall Street.
Okay.
And he wrote this great thread. You'd think he was a leftist, but he wrote this thread before he died that the left has adopted the ethos, there is no truth but power.
Yeah.
Which was
the central postmodernism.
And he said it was fascistic.
Yes, it is.
Right. And it was funny
it's
that
very fascistic. The progressives love the Mussolini.
Right. And so what we're dealing with right now is you made a really great point on a point that funny enough, when we were talking, it was a point I was going to make.
Oh.
The first
That's
battle.
Why you think it's great.
Absolutely. I was like, Michael said before I could even say it. He must be a very smart guy. The first battle of Bull Run.
Yeah.
That the Confederates stuck to their principles.
Yep.
And decided not to march on D.C. and seize the White House. The first actual battle of the Civil War, Manassas or Bull Run, the Confederates routed the Union. The Union fled in panic. And the Confederates stopped at the border and said, we have proven we mean business. Let the war end here.
Yeah.
There will be no war. And then Lincoln said, crush them.
Yes.
If the Confederates
and crush the Constitution.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's insofar as it's in my way. Yes.
Arrest the Maryland legislature sympathetic to the Confederacy. Suspend habeas corpus between here, Pennsylvania, and D.C.
Lock up journalists.
Threaten to arrest the sitting Supreme Court justice for threatening to defy me.
On his march to the sea, General Sherman gave the okay to slaughter all the freed slaves that were following him because they were annoying him.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he burned farms
by a
and killed
Union guy
families
whose
and
name
civilians.
happened to be Jefferson Davis.
And also the fact that they're burning down houses of people who just happen to be the wrong side of a border.
Yeah.
Civilians. He torched their farms.
Yes. Yep.
And so,
Hitler
again,
with a top hat.
I'm not a fan of the Confederacy. They wanted to put slavery in their Constitution.
They
literally, and a lot of people are going about slavery. I'm like, bro, look at the
That's
Confederate
the lost
Constitution.
cause of the nonsense. Yeah.
Yeah. But the point was, whatever you think about the conflict, if the Confederates on that day said, how'd you describe it? If we be hypocrites this one time,
Yeah.
then they would have won the Civil War.
Because they could have seized the White House, gotten Lincoln in his cabinet. It's like, okay, now we're going to negotiate from position of power.
Yep, that would have been the end.
I get this all the time because one of my big policy positions is that they should seize all university endowments, which are the crystallization of privilege, and distribute that money as reparations. And people are like, how do you, as an anarchist, going to reconcile the government seizing all this money? I'm like, you got me. This will be my one. Like, yep.
Well, the government exists, so might as well put it to
It's
good
my
use.
one hypocrisy.
I propose. I had a guy on the show a few years ago.
And the thing of doing it, though, by the way, not the reparations part, but
I'm for reparations.
Of course.
I'm for reparations.
Well, you know my reparations plan.
What? No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Well, let me break it down for you. This is April Fool's, but I'm not kidding. There are, because reparations has to be reparations, right? If I burn down your $10,000 car, I can't give you $5,000. I have.
Oh, yes, I do know.
To make you whole,
Right.
right? So how are you going to compensate these estates or people who are owned? If your great grandma was a slave, I can't be like, here's 10 grand. You're like, oh, screw her. I got my 10 grand. I'm going to go to, buy a new car. There are in this country 41.5 million African Americans, according to Google, 40 million Canadians. They have made their point repeatedly through their actions and words that they don't want to be free. Slavery in the South is a nightmare. So obviously the definition, the opposite that will be slavery in the North will be heaven on earth. Every African American gets a Canadian. Racism is done forever. Reparations, you're back where you started up, repaired, and everyone's happy. And you can even match them up. So like Barack Obama is African. He does not get a slave. Michelle can get like, I don't know, like Jordan Peterson or something.
That's great.
Like Stacey Abrams can get God sad, maybe can help her lose some weight. It all works out. And then
So-
no more ever talk of racism.
My point was how much
mean every white person
land
gets
is
an
controlled by the
N-word
Bureau of
pass?
Land Management?
What's that?
How much land is controlled by the Bureau of Land
Is it like
Management?
60% something crazy?
We give all of that. We divvied up among all of the black population descendants of slaves. I don't care.
You want to send black people to live in the woods?
No, they'll own the property. They'll go live in the woods. They can do whatever they want with it. But we take it from the federal government, break it up, and give it to the descendants of slaves. I don't care if you're white, black, Latino, whatever. You got a slavery ancestry. We got a parcel of land just for you because I don't want the federal government to have it. And I don't care who else gets it. But if this is a compromise that gets us there, I'll take it.
But I think the only reparations for slavery is enslavement.
It's like eye for
So here's the real problem.
Slavery.
The real problem with reparations is that they're impossible because the population expansion is exponential and the descendants of slaves now exceed the amount of land available to repair them as was the 40 acres and a mule. It's impossible.
But that 40 acres and a mule would have been reparations either, to be fair.
No, I know. But at the time they were like, we'll give you this. And then they didn't. And that's the argument they're making. The advocates for reparations. And I'm like, right. And now there's an exponential expansion of the descendants of slaves, substantially more.
But what's even crazier is that the reparations that they're talking about in California was never a slave state.
Yeah.
They're getting the reparations for like you were discriminated against in housing. It's like, wait. Like I've gone for apartments I didn't get. Like I do not get become a millionaire.
It's like recent history.
This was an interesting conversation we had on the Culture War podcast about Mahmoud Khalil.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue I was brought up by this liberal attorney who said he's not accused by the government of committing crimes. He's got allowed to have his free speech. So let's not argue what the government is not arguing and simply say they've accused him of distributing or being aligned with Hamas. Therefore, free speech. And I just said, if a black man walks into a bakery and the owner says, we don't serve black people, is that legal or illegal? And he says, of course it's illegal. And I said, okay. If the black man walks into a bakery and the guy says, we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone you, sir, you have to leave. Is that legal or that's legal? Okay, so the distinction between legal and legal is whether or not he expresses his intent to be racist.
Right.
That's easily masked. In this regard, Donald Trump, his administration, can use any legal justification they want for removing someone so long it's codified, so long as they don't say certain words.
Sure.
This is it makes literally no sense to operate this way as a country. So now we have, if you're racist, just don't tell anybody and you're okay.
Well,
Just don't tell.
yeah, I mean, I had Francis from Trigonometry on my show, and he was talking about like how it's crazy that like people are going to get fired for their views. And I'm like, I don't think it's crazy at all because I said, everyone in this room, there's people with certain views. You're like, you know what? Great. I'm not working with you. Like someone's like advocating for maps. I'm like, that's nice. Like, goodbye. Like we're not having this conversation.
Yep.
And he's like, well, like at what point do you draw the line? I'm like, he's like, what if some of them want to discriminate against race? I go, yeah, it's called freedom of association. And it never entered his head because like in Europe, it's just like given, you can't do that. I'm like, yeah, the basis of property is you can hire and fire whoever you want. And Jim Crow was mandated racism. If I had a white business and I want to hire these educated or hardworking black people to work for my company and I could pay them pennies on a dollar because no one else is hiring them, I legally couldn't. So it was forcing people to be prejudiced as opposed to letting a more liberal order. And then very quickly it would fall apart because it's going to be very hard to discriminate against people, those of whom are bringing great value to your company, which many of them would.
Let's jump to this next story. We got this from the Post Millennial. Seattle mayor reveals $47 million payroll tax deficit as companies flee the Emerald City.
Shocking.
I wonder why. Last week, the mayor of Seattle announced the Emerald City collected $47 million less in payroll taxes last year as large companies continued to flee the liberal oasis. According to Seattle Times, the mayor of Seattle City Council expected the tax haul to be $400 million. Instead, the city brought in only $360 in 2024.
That's 10% difference.
That is tremendous.
Wow.
Now, people got to understand, cities are organizations. And a lot of people like to say public and private, but just understand organization can be used to describe the umbrella of what everything is. That means you need income. You're going to spend money. Money's got to come in. Now, governments use this tactic I call pointing a gun in your face and demanding the money from you. Tax collection. Other people have different words to describe it, but we'll just describe it that way. Seattle, when they do this, what happens? People gladly pay it. Seattle city government says everybody pays their taxes. The businesses say, yes, sir, thank you, sir. But when someone throws a brick through your window, sets fire to your cars,
Right.
or in other ways just terrorizes you for your political beliefs, they're going to say, maybe we should go somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
And they do. Like Delaware now, Seattle's experiencing the same thing. There's a funny meme. They said, show me a ghetto and I'll show you a town run by Democrats.
I don't think that's necessarily true because if you think about like South,
Tendencies,
Appalachia.
right? Actually,
West Virginia was blue for
West
a
Virginia,
long
yep,
time.
until recently.
Okay.
Yeah. And even right now, again, we were talking about this earlier with the Uber laws, West Virginia is still fighting to counter.
Yeah.
Bro, I got to tell you, under the Democrat leadership.
Hold on, I'm now triggered because this is a conservative talking about that drives me crazy. There are no Republican cities either. Like all cities are run by Democrats. So some Democrats run it better and some Democrats run it worse. The only example they can think of is Giuliani. And in any other context, people call him a rhino. Pro gay rights,
Jim
pro
Justice
abortion. Go ahead.
was a Democrat governor until 2017 when he switched to the Republican Party.
Sure. I'm just talking about cities, bro. I don't think
No, I
Michigan
know.
has any cities really.
So the important thing to understand is you go to any city, you will see pride flags. It is not an issue of the Republicans don't win there, or it is that these cities are leftist.
Yes, correct.
Right.
By nature.
Right. And so it is that ideology. I guess that's the point. It's obviously there are some Republican areas that are not as good.
But I think kind of misses the point because if all cities are leftist, which is I think everyone agrees, why are some cities thriving and some aren't? So if they have something in common, it's some secondary characteristic that's going to make some work and some work better than others. Why is look at Seattle and then look at like Miami. Like I think Miami does have a
Miami's red.
But look at like Austin's doing a lot better.
Miami's red.
Sure, Austin's doing a lot better than Seattle does.
Is it because
and Austin's run by communists.
the apparatus around those cities?
These are questions to ask. These are questions.
I think it's actually simple. The density of the left. Austin is mixed.
Yeah, that
Seattle's
could be
far
it.
left.
That could be it.
Miami
as
is
well.
far Republican.
But that could be it as well.
And I think the important way to look at it is when you make the surface level joke, the meme, show me a ghetto, I'll show you a city run by Democrats. That's a very surface level way of understanding. Leftist ideology leads to chaos and destruction. Right ideology leads to creation.
There's the joke about what the socialists used before they used candles, light bulbs.
Yeah.
And I got to say something else though that surprised me, and this is kind of a detour that there's no point, but to your hometown, I went to Chicago for my birthday last year, and all my friends were like, good luck not getting shot. It was perfectly safe. I didn't realize the violence is very localized.
Yeah.
Like the places I was at, I forgot where they were. We were out at 2 a.m. It was perfectly fine.
Which neighborhood do you know?
It's like northwest of the museums.
Well, there's a lot of. I mean, if you're talking about like the Gold Coast or like slightly northwest of downtown,
Yeah,
then you're in a well-off area.
that's where it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my understanding. That's
Go to
typical.
80%.
I'm not arguing with you, but I'm just saying.
No. I'm saying I think you went to the one safe place.
But I think the difference is in New York, the crime is on the subway. It's going everywhere. And in LA, my friend was staying in Beverly Hills, and they warned her when you get out of the hotel, just don't have stuff in your car. I was surprised at Chicago's reputation. We walked around a lot. That it felt a lot safer than New York, where I walked around. That surprised me.
Do you feel like the violence used to be hyper-local in Manhattan to certain places?
No.
But now it's worse everywhere? After the 70s, maybe like the 90s?
There was no, this is going to sound crazy. For a long period in time, violence in New York was not a thing. It was like you hear about it, but like you were perfectly safe.
Post-70s.
Yeah, I say post-80s because I think Giuliani came in 93.
right?
Yeah, like maybe like 95. Because when he first came in, I remember being on the subway. You couldn't listen to your headphones because there would be groups of kids that go through subway to subway. They'd shake you down and they'd rob you. And it would just,
That's Chicago.
But maybe that's Chicago. I'm not arguing with that. My point is, but that went away.
When
New York was super safe.
Yeah.
When did you go to Chicago? Like
Last summer.
I don't know. I think you just must have had a nice experience because
I did. I was shocked.
Yeah, Chicago, I would argue, is having grown up there versus living in New York for 5 years. New York was ridiculoly safe compared to Chicago.
Yeah.
I lived on the Southwest side, and I'd go to bed, and I don't know, maybe like maybe once every couple months you hear gunshots ringing out, someone gangbangers shooting somebody nearby. We all knew somebody, like the high school fight, people brought guns.
Okay.
My buddy, I was on the phone with him when I was like 16, and he lived on 63rd in California, and he said, yo, I saw 2 guys dragging a carpet with legs sticking out.
Oh, my God.
The next day, they found a dead body in a carpet.
Sure.
So I've been shot at randomly for no reason. Me and my brother were driving off of Independence on 290. We took a left, and a guy just pointed his car, a gun at, bang, and fired at us.
I'm not at all in
Randomly
any
for no
way
reason.
like diminishing your lived experience. I'm just saying that I was surprised as a New Yorker how safe I felt in Chicago this past summer.
The point I'm trying to make is not that my lived experience is being diminished. It's that you had a comfortable experience in a wealthy neighborhood. But if you actually went to any of the actual regular neighborhoods, you probably would have been like, holy crap, this place is...
I noticed in
question. Just like
Manhattan,
in New York.
like around the 2010s, that the violence started to spread everywhere.
Yes,
even in
that's
places
been de
that
Blasio,
I used to
yes.
think, yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
The,
It was by design.
the videos out of Chicago where they like rammed the department stores, the cars, and then run in and steal everything and run out. I mean,
Yeah.
my friends who live there say it's worse than they've ever seen it.
Is that right?
Yeah. That they have to they're building barricades in front of buildings now.
Wow.
Because cars are trying to ram the department stores. 13-year-old kids are running around areas with guns.
No.
That's
Bro.
Mad Max. That's
I gotta tell you, like,
Crazy.
having been all over New York, I was never worried at all. It was laughable. to
I'm
me.
not arguing with that. I'm just saying, I as a New Yorker, former New Yorker, I was surprised that there would be localized violence in Chicago because in New York it's not localized. That there would be any safe areas given Chicago's reputation. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
because like the death rate. You hear the death rate. How many shootings?
And,
happen
and also
every-
all the trajectories are the wrong direction. I'm like, all right, this is going to be a nightmare. And I'm
Well,
like, it's fine. I'll even pull up where I stayed. I'll follow you right now.
A really interesting thing about Chicago is when they had their mayoral election for Brandon Johnson.
Oh God.
I overlaid the
What's
election.
his approval rating? Like 13%?
It's less than that.
Okay.
It's almost zero. When I pulled up the electoral map for who voted for whom, I also pulled up racial demographics by neighborhood, and guess what? It's a 1-for-1 overlay,
Is that right?
except for one location in the city, Loyola University. So when you look at a neighborhood, this is the funniest thing. If the neighborhood was white, they voted for the white guy in first place. If the neighborhood was black, everyone they voted for was black. I'm not kidding. If you look at a black neighborhood in Chicago, so here's what I did. I said, here are the top candidates. You had Brandon Johnson. You had two other people. You had a Hispanic guy and a white guy. I highlighted the electoral map over the black neighborhoods. The top 3 people who got all the votes were all black. People who didn't even register as top candidates were the second and third place in the black neighborhoods. In the Hispanic neighborhood, the Hispanic guy was in first place. In the white neighborhood, except for Loyola, where they voted for Brandon Johnson, and that's why he won. Because the leftist white people voted for the leftist black man, combined with the black vote, put him over the edge. And the white middle-class people voted for the white guy, and he didn't get enough. Wow. Brandon Johnson was a complete disaster for the city.
Even worse than Laurie Funk.
And it's only going to get worse. The city will never improve.
So I stayed at 862 North Ashland Avenue.
North Ashland.
Yeah. I don't know what the area that's called. It was an amazing time.
Maybe they're just afraid of you.
Well, I am,
Were you wearing this outfit?
they're not locked in there with Chicago with me. Wherever it goes, I fucked it up. Screwed it up, sorry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, what area is that called?
West Town? I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Oh, yeah.
Are you surprised that I had a good experience or you're not surprised?
Kind of surprised. Although I don't know how much time I've ever spent directly in that area. It's right by, I think if you were to go, I think if you went from that spot a bit south, it would get a little dicier.
Okay.
But, I don't know. Sometimes these things change. You've got, I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to have the gangs try to murder me.
Sure.
Or the people I know in Chicago, so I don't usually get into it. I was explaining to the guys from Vice, because they did documentary series in Chicago. I was like, they came back to the office in Brooklyn and they were like, look at this thing we're working on. And they showed me an early cut or whatever. And I was like, whoa. I was like, what's your guys' security plan? Those gangs will murder you. And they were like, no, it's fine. And I was like, you embed with a gang in Chicago. You put their words, you say their name, you put the words from your mouth. Mm-hmm. They say, that's the guy, and they're going to kill you. And they will. So a big thing people need to understand about the gangs in Chicago is that a lot of the violence is based on honor and respect. And so it is known to those of us who grew up there, if a documented film crew embedded with a Chicago gang, you have just told the other gangs, I'm at war with you. I am giving them power, press, money, resources.
Validation.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. We are making them the big name in town.
Yes.
They kill you. And so we had, I forgot the guy's name. Remember the guy we had on who said his camera guy got shot?
Yeah.
Getting unloaded on?
Buckingham.
Yeah. Brandon Buckingham. He was covering the gangs and they found out. So they came up and they unloaded on him and his crew and his camera guy got shot.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Was he killed?
He didn't die.
No.
Okay.
Thankfully.
But I always tell people like, So anyway, my point is maybe in the Uncensored show I'll mention a little bit more, but Chicago's a crazy place. It's the kind of place where you think you're in a nice neighborhood and a car pulls up and they say, what you is?
They said that to me, and I said, "You know who I is?" They go, "Michael Malice."
If you say that, they might laugh. But they're saying, what gang are you with?
Yeah.
And they got gang signs for all of them. It's kind of wild. When I left Chicago, I didn't see the gang sign stuff anymore. Even in LA. Chicago, it's like there's so many gangs. There's so many different gang signs, and everybody knows all of them. And then dumb kids goof off and throw the gang signs up and then find themselves in a hospital. It's crazy out there.
It's like,
bro,
like calling Bloody Mary.
If you wore the wrong color clothes,
Yeah.
you were in a gang. So it's like if you wore, it was always a combination of black with something else. Black and yellow, oh, you're in trouble, bro. You're not an anarchist. I forgot which gang that was. But they'd see you and they'd be like, why are you wearing those clothes here?
I remember Deal Hughley. I worked on 2 of his books, and I learned a lot from him. And he talked about when he was growing up in South Central, they had some kind of bill or what do you call it when they vote on it, referendum, or the governor basically pulled like money for school buses. So you had to walk to school. And he's like, I had to walk through a Crip neighborhood and a Blood neighborhood. So like, no matter what I did, you know, I was SOL.
Don't wear blue, don't wear red.
Yeah.
Yep. It's crazy.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I've had friends who got roughed up because they were wearing clothes they weren't supposed to be wearing. Like just literally like a 15-year-old kid wearing gym shorts and a jersey, and they pull up and they run up to him and they start punching
I
him.
remember that being very prevalent in the 90s, but you think it's still like that in Chicago right now?
I don't know about right now.
There's certain neighborhoods where if you don't wear a beanie, it's game over.
Yeah, we're in one right now. Yeah.
There are neighborhoods in Chicago where 40 guys will be standing on each street corner, and if you walk past them, they will kill you. I'm not kidding. I had a friend.
Wait. So literally like on the corners, like a little mob?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's areas of Chicago. These areas have names where. So, I once when I moved to the suburbs when I was like 18, I met a bunch of the guys out there and I became friends with some skateboarders. And I told one of my buddies like, let's go skate in Chicago. And he's like, let's ride. Got in my car. So I drove through one of these neighborhoods. And there's on every corner of every block, there's probably between 20 and 40 guys armed, waving guns at you. And I'm just driving with my eyes half glazed, like, I don't care. I've been there, done that. They're screaming. They start running at the car. They're pulling their pants up. They're pointing the guns at us. My friend's just freaking out. He's like having a panic attack. Like, why are we here, man? I'm like, dude, they're not going to waste their time. Like, they don't care, you know? But
Maybe they care a little.
well, no, it's like if you're walking in that neighborhood, you know, to be honest, it's not always like that. If you walked into that area and walked up to those guys, they'd probably start busting out laughing, rob you, and then say, get out of here, white boy. What are you doing? But if you went up there with any kind of, hey, man, you can't do this to me, then they'd be like, we'll show you what we can do to you.
Yeah.
And so I had a friend, this girl from my neighborhood, walked into one of these neighborhoods when she was like 17, and like a 60-year-old black guy walked up to her and stopped her, physically grabbed her and said, young lady, you're going to turn around right now or you're going to die. Like, that's how these neighbors are like. It's all racially segregated.
Yeah.
I grew up right next to Newburgh. Newburgh, it's like a small city in New York.
Oh, yeah.
So like
Oh, cool. That's
that
so
was where
cool.
when I used to do really bad things, we'd go to Newburgh to get those things. And just imagine like early 2000s, 4 super pale goth-looking kids rolling through Newburgh to get like a dime back. But it was fun. We never had a problem. I think only once was one guy chased out with like an automatic gun.
Well, this is the thing about cartels. When you know why you're safe in Cancun or Tijuana? You go down there, you don't got to worry about crime. American tourists. Cartels run these things. If American tourists get hurt, American tourists stop coming.
Right. Yeah.
You're part of the
So there
business
was
model.
I grew up in Bensonhurst, and back in the day, it was Italian mafia neighborhood. And even though New York at that time was not a safe place, you better believe Bensonhurst was very, very safe.
There's this story about a hotel casino in somewhere in like the Yucatan part of Mexico or whatever. And there were 2 female tourists who got kidnapped and killed. And then the American tourists stopped going. Immediately, all the business dried up. So the cartel found the 2 guys who did it and flayed them alive.
Jesus.
And made sure everybody watched. Everybody knew they did it.
And tourism picked up.
No, it never came back. But they were basically like, we were making millions of dollars per year off of Americans coming and buying our stuff, and you destroyed everything. Right. And so they made sure everyone knew. There's the thing about the cartels, man, operating in the United States that's so freaky. When Anonymous was big in like 2010, there were a couple of Mexican Anonymous guys who were trying to go after the cartel, saying like, we'll expose you. few days later, their bodies were hung from a highway sign, just blood dead.
Right. They just
hanging.
took off that lady's head. What was she, a chief of police or a mayor?
Oh, right.
And then put it on top of her cop car or something.
They put on her car?
Yes.
Yep.
That was just like, how many assassinations happened last year of a presidential candidate? 20?
It's crazy.
Wait, in
23?
Mexico?
Yeah.
Oh, it's all the time.
20?
They assassinated like 20, maybe 30.
36 people.
You're right.
36.
36.
Maybe we should be importing more Mexicans. That's what I'm hearing.
The thing about the cartels, though,
20?
this is what people got to understand. People are not crazy for the most part. Meaning, sometimes you will encounter a gangbanger in Chicago who's like, I'm going to kill this person. Right. There's one gang I won't name where their initiation requirement is that you murder somebody. And if you live in their territory as a child and you're growing up, you have to join the gang. So what they do is they go to this kid and they say, we got somebody, here's a gun, go do it. You'll get out when you're 18. And I actually know people who have gone through that.
Yeah.
And they go to juvie until they're 18. They get out and they got 2 deaths.
Cartels do the same. They enlist really young. So like they're just making nihilists and violence is like breathing to them.
But for the most part, if you walk up to the gangs, they're going to be like, are you buying? You going to make money for me? Right. And so it's not always like, that's why I'm saying like, they'll just rob you. If you walk up to one of these neighborhoods or these guys on the corner, they're going to be like, free money. Thanks, bro. They'll take your stuff. But they don't want trouble. So they're going to say, get out of here now. Leave.
Yeah.
Unless you come up with an attitude or act like you have a right to be there, then they might be like, okay, we'll show you your rights.
Yeah.
Let's lighten the mood. We got a story from the Post Millennial. Major flop. Disney's live-action Snow White expected to lose $115 million. Did you know it is one of the lowest-rated films now on IMDb?
Well, how low are we talking?
I think it's like the 8th lowest.
Really?
Yeah, it's bad.
It can't be that bad.
It was there were problems in the actual story, like the story they had issues. They tried to remedy those issues. There was problems with Dinklage was complaining about the dwarves, so they tried to change it from.
Was he in it, or was he just complaining about the dwarves?
He was complaining about dwarves. He was complaining
Because they
that
didn't hire them. And
That's
how
what I
many,
was
how many movies are dwarves going to be able to act in, right?
Well,
but
AI
they were
dwarves?
complaining that there were dwarves, and so they changed the dwarves to the companions, and and then people were like
the bandits.
The bandits.
No, they didn't.
No.
And then they were like, okay, we have to get rid of the band. So my point being, there were multiple problems with the actual storyline. And then once the movie was finished, Rachel Ziegler was terrible for promotion. She was saying things that were completely polarizing. Whether or not, like, your opinion.
I got to pause you, Phil, because I think you glossed over the most important part.
What's that?
It was not the 7 companions.
What was it?
They did change it to the bandits, but initially it was the 7 racially and gender diverse companions.
Yeah.
There you go, Michael.
But the other thing that's funny is Vanity Fair just had a headline that says, even though it's a flop, it made Rachel Ziegler into an icon. It's like, no, you're trying to make fetch happen.
Yeah, exactly.
You're trying to make her an icon. No one thinks she's an icon. She's a pain in the ass.
Unlikable. And again, you don't have to.
Wow.
I mean, geez, look at how ridiculous.
Phil,
So,
did you see it
here's
in
what
the
happened.
theater?
Here's what happened. They were making the movie. Peter Dinklage did a podcast where he said, "Are you seriously doing dwarves? Like, how backwards is? What year is it?" And it became a big story.
Yeah, what year does Snow White take place? It's not 2025. What are you talking
It's
about?
medieval,
Right.
But and more importantly, dwarves are mythological creatures who are born from the clay of mountains. They are not little people.
Okay, can we stop this? I have to tell this story. I've told this story several times, but this bears. It's April Fool's. Let's have fun. I remember exactly where I was as a kid on Shore Parkway. I was like 4 or 5. And I was at that age where you start understanding, okay, dinosaurs are real, dragons are fake, unicorns are fake, snakes are real, ninjas are real.
I know where this is going.
You know, ninjas are real, elves are fake. And that was the first time in my life I saw a little person. And he turns the corner in his little denim vest, and I saw him, and I'm like, well, back to drawing board. I'll never, and I just, yep, I thought I had it.
So here's what happened.
Incredible.
Peter Dinklage complained. So what we believe happened was they said, okay, let's do Snow White and the bandits instead. And there'll be racially and gender diverse group of people. One of them, of course, will be a little person so that we're not.
Is that not Peter Dinklage right there?
No, okay.
Can we give him credit for having a minority person be a bandit for once?
Okay. Well, that's true. 2 of them, actually.
Right?
3. Yeah. So then what happened was there was a major backlash when this photo emerged. And everyone began mocking the film, saying no one's going to want to see Snow White and the 7 gender,
Right, the bandits on
companions.
hat, yeah.
So then they decided to do the dwarves, but instead of casting people because it was offensive, they would CGI them.
Right.
Oh my.
They merged the 2 films together. So there's no prince, there's a bandit. She fights alongside the 7 bandits before meeting the 7 dwarves.
Wait, what? There's
They come-
14?
Yes.
They're two
They're
dopies?
going for like what Lily Phillips was doing in all her videos.
They combined both stories, and they made a hodgepodge nonsense. Okay.
Are we also not talking about the fact that she's not Snow White?
Indeed.
yeah.
Snow White.
What did Michael Knowles call her? Sand brown?
Sand beige.
Sand beige. Here's the best part. In the original Snow White, which you've seen, I imagine,
Yes, of course.
Snow White does nothing. She doesn't do anything.
Right.
She gets kicked out of her house. A guy tries to kill her, changes his mind. She runs away. She cleans up the animals lead her to the dwarves where she cleans a messy house and sings and dances. She then eats a poisoned apple and passes out. Then the prince comes and kisses her, and the Wicked Witch dies by an accident getting struck by lightning. There is no great heroic moment. There is no moment where Snow White defeats the evil queen. The prince doesn't defeat the evil queen. She literally goes on a mountain and gets struck by lightning. The prince has no idea what happened, and he just walks up and says, hey, here's some beautiful woman. Like, she's my true love. I'll kiss her. And she wakes up, and they're like, wonder what that was all about. In this Snow White, she joins the bandits, fights the guards, makes it back to the city, where she challenges the evil queen and reawakens the spirit of the nation by reminding them of their names. The queen doesn't even know. The queen then flees, commits suicide, not a joke, and Snow White has a ditty party with everyone in the castle.
Did you watch this movie?
Diddy party.
No, I watched a bunch of different reviews. on it.
Yeah.
So a ditty party is where everyone dresses in white and dances around.
That's not all they do.
That's what everyone calls it. That's not what all
Is
it
there
is.
not a mirror?
There is.
Okay.
Yeah. And the best part about this, I was watching Nerdrotic. The original line is magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one
Right.
of all? And in the movie, she says, magic mirror on the wall, she says the other line, who's the fairest one of all? Wait, or of them all.
Right.
Yeah, is that what she says?
Yes.
Yeah, of them all. And that was like a Mandela effect
Right.
mistake. People were saying the wrong line. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all? Or who's the fairest of them all? Sorry.
Right.
One of all is the correct one. They couldn't even get the line right. It's like they didn't even know what they were doing. And the best part is they canceled the red carpet for it before it came out.
It might be a sleeper cult classic.
Well, maybe like The Room.
So?
Like the Toxic
The Room?
Avenger kind of thing.
Yeah. No, that one's actually awesome.
No, The Room.
Like Basket Case.
I like that one too. Come on, Basket
Like
Case-
The Room.
This isn't
The Room, but that even sounds better.
You know
than
what the
this.
thing is about this? Kids don't like diversity. They don't care. Like when you're 5, your idea of diversity is there's a rabbit and there's a talking owl.
Yeah,
and then there's this dwarf.
Get rid of all that.
This is a really
Get
good
rid of all
point.
that. No. I no anthropomorphized animals for my kid.
This is a
Wait,
really,
okay, hold on.
but
No. We
listen,
got a moment
That's
here.
a joyless childhood, Tim.
Okay, I hear autism speaking. Please go ahead.
Why would I want my child's neurological pathways to be built around looking at a screen of anthropomorphized animals who do not exist and starting to build an identity around things that are not real?
When I gave you Dianetics, it was a joke. You weren't supposed to read it.
That is not in Dianetics. I read Dianetics. Actually, I read the first chapter of Dianetics, and then I laughed and put it down. Have you ever read it?
No, I have not.
It's crafty.
My friend Steph, who I went to Japan with, this is one of my favorite stories about her. When she was like 5 or 6, she'd watch these like live action shows, and they had a person like a Mickey Mouse costume or a dog, and she'd be like, "Why are they talking that person in a dog suit as if it's a dog? Are they trying to trick me? I'm seeing right through them," because she thought it was deception, as opposed to like your suspension of disbelief.
Great.
Deception.
Yes, like oh, this is not really. a dog.
I think anthropomorphized animals in shows cause identity disorders in young people.
Look, you think they're gonna make your kid an otherkin?
No, a furry.
You mean otherkin?
Otherkin are people who think they're mythological creatures.
No, that's oh, no, sir, Dad. That is the dispute within the otherkin community. I'm not kidding. The dispute is,
I
if I'm an
know.
otherkin who believes I'm a dog, and Shane is an otherkin who thinks he's a dragon. Dragons don't exist. Are you really an otherkin, or you have screw loose?
Right. Oh, I think dragons.
I
are
know.
real.
There's owlkin, wolfkin,
Yes.
etc. Right.
But there are no dragonkin because dragons aren't real.
But that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So the kin community actually believe that they have an affinity for the animal, like the spirits
Correct,
within them.
yes.
Furries dress up like cartoon animals.
Correct. Yes, and engage with each other.
And that's rooted in an identity disorder developed around anthropomorphized animals in cartoons.
I don't believe this at all, and here's why I think you're wrong. Because anthropomorphized animals have been a thing since the 20s at least, and the furry phenomenon is very recent.
Because of the expansion of mass media.
No, everyone saw Snow White in the theaters back in the day. Everyone saw Robin Hood when he's a fox.
There's a yes.
We all
but-
grew up on these.
I talk to animals in real life.
So there's
I'm fine.
two things to consider.
Sure.
The expansion of media, the population expansion, meaning the meme is this. In 1990, a man says he wants to. He's hot for toasters.
Okay.
A guy smacks him on the back of the head and says, "Shut up, you weirdo."
Right.
2024, he says he's hot for toasters, goes online, finds a community of toaster lovers, and now he's going around with a group of people at a toaster convention.
I'm familiar with Batterykin.
Oh.
Okay.
Man.
I draw the line at anthropomorphized inanimate objects, but animals are fine.
Yeah, none of this, like, what's his name? The candelabra from Beauty and the Beast?
Get rid of that.
Yeah.
Straight to the camp.
Lumiere, is that his name?
I don't know.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought Beauty and the Beast was a messed up movie, to be honest.
Why is that? Because it encourages people like uglies?
No, because first of all, the witch who curses them curses the servants.
Oh, that's
like-
true, yeah.
Like
Guilty by
this,
association.
okay, first of all the prince did was say, like, it's my house, you can't come here, lady. And so she tries to destroy his life and everything he has. The servants who are just working jobs are cursed to be ridiculous objects. Basically, one day you show up for work and you're like, look, man, I don't know, all I do is I clean the floors, and you turn into a mop. And that's like your existence forever until that guy learns to love.
That's what you did to Ian. Look at his hair.
Well, isn't the point that like the person that did the cursing was actually bad and kind of crazy? So I mean, that's kind
There's
of
no good guys in that. Gaston is the only good guy.
Why? Because of his pecs?
So I would love to do one of the things I've always talked about doing with short films is making them from the perspective of like a realistic perspective. Like imagine if you did Beauty and the Beast, but the people were all normal, right?
Okay.
So Gaston is fine being an arrogant blowhard, sure, but he's not bouncing his pecs and eating dozens of eggs. He would just be a guy in a bar laughing and boastful, right?
Right.
He hears that there's a gigantic monster that kidnapped a young woman, and he says, okay, we got to go free her. Not only did it kidnap her, it kidnapped the dad, who was welcomed in. Then, when she came to save her dad, imprisoned her because it wants relations with her. Gaston was right to rally the townspeople to go stop that guy. But the movie is propaganda, and they make him look like the bad guy. It's pro-beast propaganda.
Pro furry.
Yeah.
Indeed.
She falls in love with a.
And then you know what they do to make Gaston the bad guy? One scene. After the fight, when the beast tries to help him, he stabs the beast even though the fight is already over, and then falls to his death. If he didn't do that, the story is really just there's some blowhard, arrogant guy in the town who thinks he's all that. Hears that a monster kidnapped a young lady, who he likes, by the way, and he says, we can't tolerate this. We have to do something about it. He rallies the townspeople to stop the monster that is kidnapping people.
So Gaston is basically the Luigi of that movie.
Indeed he is.
There you go. He's a hero.
He took matters into his own hands when the law failed.
Wow.
Ace Clays.
Actually, I think he was the law.
Are you gonna let your kid watch Toy Story with anthropomorphized toys?
What I think is, in all seriousness, is I don't think these kinds of weird things are age appropriate until the kid is a bit older.
I think that's fair.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But like these shows are intended for 5-year-olds, right? Let me just tell you, man. There is a video that went viral of these like 10-year-old kids speaking in the 50s about post-World War II, and they sound like they're in their 50s. It went.
With the Mid-Atlantic accent or something?
Well, they were British.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But they were saying things like, I do think the consequences of the war will be quite profound on the economy, healthcare in particular, and I'm wondering what we're going to... And people are like, how are they so smart? It's because they didn't have the BS media that we have today. The kids, for 200 years ago, a child grew up around the parents doing the work.
Sure.
And so they were told to act like adults. There was no Blue's Clues or Bluey or weird garbage being jammed in these kids' faces. Anybody, if you don't have kids and you don't look for this stuff, you go on YouTube and look at what's being given to kids and tell me that stuff makes sense and you want your kid to ingest
And
it.
Elsagate, yeah.
Reject all that.
Not even Elsagate.
But also, people don't realize the concept of teenager only happened starting in, what, like the 50s?
Indeed.
It's a very recent historic phenomenon.
So, to respect the privacy of my friends, I'll keep the story as vague as I can, but I had a friend who was telling me that their children must watch a particular kids show on YouTube, otherwise they get mad. And I said, how does your child know that show exists? Well, I don't know. We'll give him a tablet one day.
It's not this show, is it? God help those kids.
God help those kids that they don't have the show. But man,
The story of an anthropomorphized beanie advocating for civil war.
my kid,
4 days a week.
my kid is going to be taking care of chickens,
Okay.
doing chores, doing work, and I think people need to really understand, and they really don't. Handing off that tablet to your kid is giving them a portal
That I
to
agree
hell.
completely.
That's why we don't have a TV in the house and the kids get anything.
Those algorithms are no
rarely.
joke.
You know what, Mike? You know what my daughter watched today? You know what she saw?
What?
Star Trek: The Next Generation, the pilot episode. We watched the pilot, and
Young, Tim.
no, it's never too young to get started on TNG. She's got to learn about what it means to be a good leader.
I mean, she is the next generation. So
Although,
of
to
course
be
she's gotta
fair,
watch it.
when Picard is challenged by Q about his quest to Farpoint Station, and he's like, let's try and ram through him anyway. I was like, dude, a powerful force is threatening to kill your people and literally just froze a guy seemingly to death. At this point, you contact your superiors and say, we've encountered a devastating force. We're retreating. Right. Nah, he was like, do it anyway. And like, I don't think that's a good leader. But the show's great.
There's so many blue puzzle pieces floating around the air right now. I don't even know how to handle it.
Well, you got to understand the importance of the next generation.
Of course, I have 2 nephews. I have a lot of fun being the corrupting uncle.
No. The show.
Oh,
Next generation.
We had this argument before. I can't stand that stuff.
In all seriousness, if your kids don't know it exists, they can't demand the stupidity.
Yes.
And it's crazy to me that I've had people say, oh, that's so funny, Tim. Your kid's going to get into weird stuff. There's nothing you can do about it. And I'm like, you're wrong.
I have
completely wrong.
And even if they're right, it's like, shouldn't you make it as hard for them as possible?
Yes. I have complete control over what my kids watch.
Yeah.
They're not getting any of that.
Right.
Like, that's it. We know who they're hanging out with.
And here's the other thing. If you, I'm surprised you're getting a pushback because every single person watching this has gone down a YouTube algorithm rabbit hole, and you end up like, why am I seeing this? This has happened to all of us. Now imagine if you're 5. What are you talking about?
Oh, dude.
You cannot leave a child alone with that algorithm.
The severity of the Elsa Gate goes beyond just Elsa and Spider-Man running around. It was showing videos of kids eating out of urinals.
No.
Not kidding.
Yeah, injections.
There were pictures of children eating feces. Because because babies can't, the algorithm was just auto-playing the next video.
Right.
So whatever hit the most keywords had the most watch time, and the comments are all gibberish because the babies would hit the screen and comment gibberish.
They were doing to the babies what they're doing to in Clockwork Orange.
Yep.
Oh my God.
There's going to be a generation of people who are severely disabled because of this.
Yes.
Because this was like 3 or 4 years. So there's a kid who was 5 years old, and the parents gave him the tablet, and he's sitting there looking at it, and he's sitting there staring at it. He goes through this for 3 years. He's 8 years old. And the only thing he can think of is Adolf, I'm not kidding, Adolf Hitler with breasts doing Tai Chi with the Incredible Hulk. That's not a joke. That's actually one of the videos that was continually going viral.
Were these
Millions
videos
of views.
basically like AI randomly generated?
No, this is before that, I think.
It technically, yes, it was procedurally generated videos based on keywords and content library. So what they would do is they would spam blast an insane amount of content on YouTube. And then the ones that got the most views, they would start making more of and replicating.
I remember I saw this channel where it's just like, I don't even understand like how it got all these views, like what the rest of engineering. It would be like a beach and there's a fish head sticking out of the sand and then an eel comes out of the fish's mouth. And I'm like, what am I watching?
Here you go.
Like Salvador Dali.
Yeah.
But
This one's got 170,000 views.
Okay. No.
Here's Hitler with
that's
breasts.
Right. That's right. Don't watch this, everyone. This is MK Ultra.
Why is Adolf Hitler on each finger as it's singing about the fingers? And why does he have breasts and is a woman?
And why is there copyright infringement? That Minnie Mouse is owned by Disney.
So apparently what was happening is that the YouTube algorithm, so at the time, like what was the biggest History Channel stuff before Ancient Aliens? It was World War II.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
So these things were really interesting to people. So Mickey Mouse, the Hulk, they're viral search terms. So these videos are being procedurally generated. Also, you notice the language? Listen to the song.
Where are you?
They clearly don't speak English and they don't live in this country. They were making content and making lots of money off it, and it was frying the brains of babies.
That's how you destroy a generation.
Well, YouTube ended up getting rid of it as a huge scandal.
Are like tents part of, like who's searching for tents in the desert?
These aren't the only
It
ones,
would
man.
pop up after like certain videos that parents thought were okay, and then it would come right up automatically.
I should try and find my video from like 2018, youtube.com/Timcast, where I originally had it. Because this evolved to the point where there were little chibi cartoon characters where they were doing things like peeing in each other's mouths, eating feces out of the toilet. I'm not kidding.
There were videos of
all over YouTube Kids.
dressed up like princesses and Spider-Man running around with like needles and stuff.
Yes,
like,
but this was
in like live action?
Yes.
Yes.
I feel so naive.
And it evolved to a point where there were people in Eastern Europe who were literally giving saline injections to their daughters and getting millions of views.
Stop.
Not kidding. Insanity. So I'm just saying.
You're talking about holding your kids hostage, right? Like,
no, but that actually makes that actually
insanity.
I can wrap my head around more if you're making a lot of money like that. You can follow the logic.
right.
At least.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So I'm just saying.
They're not monetizing off their hostages.
Right. So I can it's evil, but I can understand the path to their.
Right.
So when
they respond to incentives.
When my daughter is probably around 7 or 8 is when she'll get to watch The Simpsons with me.
Okay.
That's how old I was when I started watching The Simpsons, I think.
Okay.
Maybe I was younger than that. But The Simpsons is fantastic up to season 9. After that, cut off. And I'm going to tell her that's when I'm going to say Simpsons got canceled.
No, you're going to say Bart went back to his own planet. Oh, he died. He died on the way to his own planet.
Yep. After season 9, right before I think the Armin Tamzarian episode, I'm going to be like, and that's it. There's no episodes anymore.
Yeah.
No more. But we're going to watch all of Star Trek Next Generation. And then once she's a little older, Deep Space Nine, because...
Wait, so I have to ask, you're not going to let her watch Chronicles of Narnia?
Maybe.
Aslan.
I think I'd rather just have her read the books.
That's true, but Aslan is a talking lion.
Indeed. But he's not a weird cartoon, like humanoid anthropomorphized thing.
Okay.
It is anthropomorphized to a degree.
Too. It's not inane BS. It's modern.
Okay, sure.
Right,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I think largely
No Winnie the Pooh.
she's not going to have internet stuff
That's good.
at all. Yeah, for a long time.
No Winnie the Pooh. Huh?
No tablets.
Yeah.
And it is really fascinating to me how I don't know. It's just how people don't involve themselves in their kids' lives or have their kids involved in their lives.
It's not fast. I think what it is, and I can't wrap my head around this. It's that people in this country for over a century are content to have the government raise their kids for them.
Yeah.
It's never gonna. Nope,
it.
we ain't doing that.
And conservatives yelling about like open the schools again. I'm like, but don't. I always say this all the time. Don't be surprised when people who despise you teach your kids to despise your values. What do you
Everyone
expect?
got real complacent outsourcing their parenting.
And what the teachers were doing, were telling the students, your parents are trying to hurt you.
Yes.
You've got to keep these secrets. And they were scared. And then they made the parents into enemies.
Evil.
We're going to go to your chats, my friends. So smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you know.
Are you going to share the cartoon you made of me and Roseanne? Or were we going to talk about the...
Well, yeah, let's show that on the uncensored portion.
Okay. And the video, the clip of me and Roseanne paying up. We could talk about that.
Oh,
after the
yeah,
show.
yeah. We'll play, yeah, we do got to get to the chats. So we'll
Yeah.
play that. That's at rumble.com/Timcast IRL. Join Rumble Premium to watch the uncensored call-in show. If you use promo code TIM10, you get $10 off your annual membership. Do it. All right, what do we got? I'm Not Your Buddy Guy says, can you coexist with people who seek your demise?
Yes, it's called Women.
Aha. But the answer is yes.
Of course you can.
Yeah. We have to. In fact, most of the world, you have to.
North Korea wants to destroy us. That's nice.
We got to trade with them. We have to open up trade to destabilize and alter their structures.
I know that they didn't they didn't specify, but are they talking about nations or are they talking about individuals?
Just in general.
But in either case, like not only can you have no choice.
Yeah, like,
There's
bro.
3 people in this room that if I had my druthers, they'd be the rap. At least 3.
Good to see you, Michael.
He's
I
only,
wish I could say the same.
He's only sparing Serge.
Yeah, that's it. Sir.
All right. Raybert G. Stanbert Jr. says, Dan, Tim, congrats on getting the question as a guest for tonight's show. Surprised he's following the FBI election story and not something in Gotham.
Can I do both?
I thought the question was a great character.
Agreed.
Yeah.
You know, it's made by Steve Ditko.
Oh, really?
Wait a minute. You don't know the stories to the question?
No.
Young man. Steve Ditko, co-creator of Spider-Man, and then he left Marvel. He created a character called Mr. A, who is based on Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism, a black and white and whatever. And that became the question, who later became Rorschach.
Yeah.
Oh, he became Rorschach.
You know what's really sad is for Watchmen, Alan Moore wanted to use the DC characters and they wouldn't let him.
So yeah, and what's even funnier than that is my mentor Harvey Picard, God rest his soul, from American Splendor. He went on a book tour to promote his work when the movie came out, and he calls me when he gets back from Europe. And he goes, when he was in Scotland, he had met with Alan Moore, and I gasped. I'm like, the Alan Moore? And Harvey Picard says to me, yeah, the Alan Moore. And I felt like an asshole. But that happened.
The algorithm just recently gave me a Harvey Picard, his Letterman.
Oh, there's a lot of them. You're in for a treat, man.
Incredible.
I'm so honored that guy was in my life.
Yeah.
Watchmen's fantastic.
Yes, it is, sir.
One of the greatest things ever.
And it's really kind of stupid because people don't realize this. There was a bunch of characters that Charlton Comics had. They short-lived in the 60s. DC acquired them. They were sitting on the shelf for like 20 years. Alan Moore's like, hey, let me do this story with them, revitalize them. They're like, nah. And it's like, they never ended up doing anything with those characters anyway. So it's just like, it's just dumb.
Terrible.
Indeed. All right, let's see what we got going on with these Rumble rants over here. Uh-oh. Kneeboop says something about the question, but we're not going to read it.
Okay.
Let's see.
That's a period.
Is Destroyer says, question for the question, what was it like dating Huntress?
Oh, she wouldn't shut up about like her dead parents. blah blah blah. My mom was Catwoman. I don't care.
Was her mom Catwoman?
Yeah, and Bruce Wayne in from Earth 2.
Oh, okay. But that's not her original story, isn't it?
That's the original. And then Earth 2 ceased to exist, and then she's like, "Who am I?" And then they gave her this whole orphanage thing.
Yeah, okay.
That was the whole point. That's why she's the Huntress. She's Batman meets Catwoman.
Oh, interesting. Let's see what we got here. ASO says, Michael Malice supervillain aura is immaculate and should absolutely remain masked for the entire show.
I can't help that I'm this ugly. I'm sorry. It's the face my parents gave me.
One of my favorite DC moments is, I can't remember what it's from, one of the movies where the Question discovers that Lex Luthor is like going to run for president or that he's doing something untoward. And then he's in Luthor's office rummaging through everything, and Luthor catches him. And he's like, I know what your plan is, Luthor. You're going to win the presidency and you're going to take over. And Luthor says, do you have any idea how much power I would have to give up to be the president?
Yeah.
It's so good. Fun. Let's see. L86 says, since you're talking about guns, currently Colorado SB 25003 is at the governor's desk. It's basically a gun ban.
Yeah.
Wow.
What does it do?
It's a, I believe, I haven't read the details of it, but it's something along the lines of it bans semi-automatic rifles, and the wording basically allows them to arbitrarily ban any semi-automatic gun. So,
but I think we're all very fortunate that we have a Supreme Court like this.
yeah.
And number one. And number two is I predict, and I doubt anyone here will disagree, that he's going to have 2 more Supreme Court vacancies to fill.
Who do you think's out?
Thomas, for sure. Thomas is going to choose to.
Are we legally allowed to clone him and then rapidly age him so that he's a young...
I don't think experimenting on black people is allowed in this country. I think after Tuskegee, it's kind of like, eh.
It's not an experiment. We've mastered cloning. We can do it.
I think he's going to step down because he's very political. He's not going to want his successor to be appointed by Democrats. So I think that's going to happen. Yeah. And I bet you, just we live in the best timeline.
What about Alito?
I think one of the leftists is going to step down or have something happen.
Kagan has health issues, doesn't she?
It was Sotomayor.
Oh, that's it, Sotomayor. Yes,
diabetes.
Yes.
Yeah. Watch it.
You're right about Thomas because he's not a moron.
He's not a moron. And he's also actuarially, as a black man, he's like 70s. He's no spring chicken.
Ginsburg could have bowed out.
Right.
And she was like, nope, Hillary's going to win.
Right.
Yep.
Well,
so that's my prediction.
I think you're right. Yeah. I wonder who Trump will nominate.
And here's the other thing. Sorry, go ahead, Phil.
I just hopefully, I was in response to Tim, hopefully someone as conservative or as someone as textualist and originalist as
I think everyone here is going to agree that all his staffing decisions are infinitely better than his first term. So when it comes to the Supreme Court, it's going to be a home run.
100%.
What if it's Matt Gaetz?
It would never happen.
Isn't Matt Gaetz a lawyer?
It would never happen.
Yeah, it couldn't.
Yeah.
It would never happen.
But I do think one thing we could do is just maybe we put Clarence Thomas in the Genesis device to de-age him by 40 years and then let him just stay on forever.
I think he wants to get in the RV and just roam the American highways.
I challenged this. There was this interesting, I can't remember what it was. I was reading an article from a researcher on senescence, they call it, aging.
Yeah, turtles don't have it.
They don't have senescence?
Turtles don't age you. They don't understand why.
Lobsters either, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And jellyfish. Yeah, but there you go. But
you like jellyfish because they look like a beanie.
That's right. They're little floating beanies. The issue with aging and people who are like, I'm ready for retirement is only because they're aged.
Yes.
That if you were to take an individual and de-age them to 24, they would be perfectly content with everything. So Clarence Thomas wanting to go off into the sunset with his RV, if you de-age him at 24, he'd be like, I'm ready for the world.
That'd be great.
Or it could be at a certain point, 30 years, you're sick of talking to these people.
Yeah.
Listen, man. If I had to listen to Kajenti Brown Jackson all the time,
I think she gets a bad rap. I'm serious.
Really?
Yeah.
Please tell me why.
Because I think it's easy to knock her as a DI hire, but I don't think she's anywhere near as dumb as people make her out to be. She's perfectly fine with the others.
My criticism is not of her intellect. I think she's perfectly smart. I think it's her ideology that is the problem.
I think Sotomayor is worse than her.
I'm not sure that Sotomayor would have refused to answer what a woman is.
I'm going to defend that answer. That's okay.
Go ahead.
I'm triggered.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay. Here we go.
Please.
Okay. And I know people hear things through an us through them filter. So if I defend her, they're from a them.
No. I'm
not saying you talk to the audience.
He admitted it. He admitted it.
I'm a them.
I got him.
I got him.
Something everyone in this room wants is for justices and judges to look at the law without ideology and have a blindfold on, right? And not to bring in their own preconceptions, to look at the Constitution and say, oh, right to privacy, therefore abortion. We all agree that's crazy. What the definition of a woman is properly in 2025 and 2023, whenever she was nominated, the role of the legislature. It's not her job to bring in her definition. It's to say, you just like right now in the House of Representatives, they're defining it as your biological gender at birth. They're referring to the congressperson from Delaware as Mr. You want a judge who says, that's what the law says? It's a guy.
That's not what she did.
That's what she meant. I'm telling you that's what she meant. She was right to refuse to answer that question because her opinion is not relevant.
But she could have said, this question, as a contentious issue in this country, this is an issue for the legislature
She'd
to
be
determine.
accused of ducking the question.
Instead, she sounded like a moron.
I mean,
She's
I
like,
know.
I'm not a
I think
biologist.
I'm not
She
saying
specifically said, I'm not a biologist. That's
I'm not
not in
saying it's
question.
a good choice of words. I'm saying this idea that she's stupid is not what was going on here. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not making
I'm
the
not saying
argument.
you are. People, I see it online a lot. Like, oh, she's what a moron. She doesn't know. She does know. She's just acting like a judge should act. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
Perhaps. All right, we got based African.
I just hate it when people insist on what a person is saying and not what they mean. Just like with Trump when he said the phrase "very fine people." Oh, he said it. Goes, calm down. That's not what he meant. I'm trying to give her that grace.
That's fair enough, and I understand what you're saying. My intuition or I'm inclined to believe that it was ideologically motivated, not that it was actually.
That could be it as well. But she's not dumb. That wasn't a dumb thing to say. That
fair
she
enough.
doesn't
Fair
know.
enough.
That's all I'm saying. Not to you, but to people at home.
All right, based African says there's an anime called Genius Prince, where the MC is asked why he's wary of his citizens. He explains that his ancestor was just a farmer and that all royalty used to be commoners, and those potential royals are watching his every move. You should watch Attack on Titan.
I hate anime.
You should read Attack on Titan.
Okay, that's manga, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Then I'll just spoil it for you.
I know what it is. The plot.
Yeah.
So the giants come to raid the cities, right?
I mean, that's like layer one.
Oh, okay.
The story is about a group of people who were oppressive in the past, and so they've been placed on an island to be punished because they're the oppressors.
Okay.
And when they actually they think the world is destroyed because they're being held prisoner. The giant monsters are there to keep them in prison, and then when they finally start getting out, they realize there's a whole industrialized world, and they're viewed as evil white people.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting.
So yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a bit more like, obviously, so the simple version is there's titans. People could transform into giant monsters. They used that power to dominate the world. Then at one point, the king agreed, you know what? We are oppressors, so we're going to go to the island and we're going to just give up. Then the rest of the world was like, lock them in and use his power against them and don't let them ever get out. And when they get out later, people are like, you're one of them. You're that evil oppressor race. And so that's the pretext. And then some kid gets crazy powers and decides to destroy the world.
It reminds me of a Fantastic Planet. Was that from the 70s? Have you guys seen this one? You've seen it, yeah.
I have not.
Superb.
But there's a bunch of good stuff. You should you'd like the first half of Death Note.
Maybe.
It's where a kid gets a notebook where he writes anybody's name in it and they die.
Oh, I wish I was that kid.
No, you don't.
My wrist would hurt so much.
You're always putting it on. But
Well, you know what he does.
You are not that guy.
Hold on. You should read it or watch it, read it, whatever.
Okay.
He's a high school student, and there are death gods. The death gods have notebooks. They have books where they write the name of people, and the whatever's remaining life on that person gets added to their life total, so they're immortal. There's a death god who gets an extra book through being mischievous, tricks another guy or whatever. Oh, no. What happens is they're not allowed to use the book to save the life of a human.
Okay.
And so one other death god is infatuated with a human and sees her about to get murdered in a mugging, so he kills the mugger and then disintegrates. Ryuk, the death god, takes the book and drops it in the high school for fun to see what happens. And the scholar student finds it and then decides to start murdering every single criminal in all of the jails and anyone accused of crimes. And they call him Killer, or in Japanese, Kira. So he just watches TV and starts massacring.
Do they know who's doing it, or it's just happening? Okay, yeah.
People are just having heart attacks and dying.
Yeah.
He intentionally chooses the way of dying to be the same so that everybody knows there's a pattern happening.
Sure.
But then it turns into, there's this really great, the story kicks off when a broadcast appears on all the TVs saying that the international community has taken notice of the deaths around the world and that they're going to find out who is doing this. And the guy sitting at the desk, his name is displayed. Then all of a sudden the guy giving the announcement has a heart attack and dies. And then the screen changes to just the letter L, the name of the actual detective, and he says, I can't believe it. You actually can kill people just by remotely. And then he explains, we traced the origin of the first death. It's in this particular prefecture in Japan. We know where you are and we're going to find you. And so then the high school student's like, oh, crap. And then it becomes this like game of chess between a detective and this young kid who has the ability to just murder anybody he wants.
Phil, how do you spell your last name? B-O-N. How many T's?
Michael.
All right, anyway.
Anything?
All right, what do we got here? Let's see. KW said, started late. Malice's view of heroism is greatness. Tim's view of heroism is goodness. Tim's heroism is moral. Malice's is aspirational.
Wait a minute. This is the first comment in internet history which is actually smart and thought-provoking and adds to the conversation. Who is this person? What's their name?
KW.
Good for you. Oh, kudos to you. Wow. I just spit.
It's immediately followed by the real Hydra who said, the Jewish mafia has taken over Timcast. Only a matter of time before it happened.
Perfect.
It's happened. It's been happening. What are you talking about?
Perfect.
Yeah, who do you think gives us the scripts every day?
Yeah,
Michael.
It's Murder Inc. in the 20s.
All right, let's, what do we have here? Michael Heim says, Chicago residents experience a lot of trauma. My favorite leader in trauma psychology is there April in Trauma Month. Please ask members to share knowledge they have about trauma and recovery. Not enough information out there. Chicago's funny. I wouldn't recommend it.
I was pleasantly surprised. That's all I'm saying.
Food.
You know what else I loved about Chicago? People loved Chicago. They were proud of their town. That meant a lot. That was really fun to see.
There was a hot dog restaurant that when Trump got elected, they released the Trump dog, which was this tiny wiener. Chicago's, you know what's really fascinating is growing up in this town, we got Jardinera for days, and there's a hot dog restaurant on every corner.
Yeah.
Literally hot dogs. Not burgers, hot dogs. And when I left Chicago for the first time, it was like a culture shock. It's just a Chicago thing.
Yeah.
I go to New York and I'm like, you can only get a hot dog on the street for $1 from some guy in a cart, but they don't sell it in stores.
Dirty water outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, I love hot dogs, and I agree that like they should be more common.
Ugh,
Do you know what Jardinera is?
Is that like the pickled cauliflower and
Yep.
carrot and all that stuff?
Yeah.
I've never tried it. I've only seen it in jars.
It's crazy. And it's only in Chicago.
It's not only Chicago. We have it in Brooklyn.
But they call them hot peppers.
No, they don't. In Brooklyn, we call it Jardinero. It's an Italian thing, I bet.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay, because when I lived in Brooklyn, I couldn't get it anywhere.
Because the Italian neighborhoods are gone, except for Bay Ridge.
Okay, well, there you go.
Bensonhurst is all Asian now.
I lived in Bay Ridge.
I said Bay Ridge is the only one left. You
lived
didn't have any. You have Jardinero. BS.
I just couldn't find it, I guess.
Yeah.
But if you go to Potbelly's, they call it hot peppers, and they have it in a jar. You can get it. So here, I ordered like 50 jars, and I'm like, I will not go without, but we haven't used it in a while.
I'm going to make one more recommendation to people. You're going to think I'm crazy. If you haven't tried pickled garlic, you're missing out. It's like my second favorite food. It's actually sweet. It's amazing, and it's like it's so good.
I always just get garlic pizza where they have the full cloves.
Oh, yeah,
into
sure.
it. Amazing. Jared May says, Michael Malice is a genius in his own category.
I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing.
I think that was the intent. Bo says, Phil, love the new album. Forever Cold is on repeat.
Cheers, man. Thank you very much.
Great name.
Thank you very much.
Indeed. Lurch says, I hate anime equals no class. I'm
in a suit. I got a tie on. That's how you know I got class.
But do you like American comics? And
I'm a comic book character. Harvey Peake wrote a graphic novel about me. So yes, I'm obsessed.
Literally about Michael Malice?
Yeah, Tim, you don't know this? We've been friends for how many years?
You don't know his origin story?
It's called Ego and Hubris. It's for like $150.
I made you a comic character.
That's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
we'll show it.
We'll show it in the after show. Yes.
Well, it was your idea though.
I grew up on American comics.
I drew the comic though.
Did you?
I did.
All right.
If the first drawing utensil was, a quill or was it fingers and smudged in berries.
Right. It wasn't a quill.
And then someone invented a way to, make ink and draw with it. Then someone made pens, pencils, paints, and they invented all these tools that could make more vibrant images.
Sure.
And eventually they developed tablets where you could actually just use your fingers and tools and styluses to draw. And today, you need only describe what you want to draw the picture in ChatGPT.
Or describe kind of what you want.
And it gets it wrong 800 times.
Yeah, it gets the language wrong somehow.
Yeah.
I don't understand how it gets the words wrong.
The fact that it gets the words right at all is amazing because no other AI can do it right now.
But I think it's easier to get the words right than to get the words wrong. Like, what is it sourcing the wrong words from? That's confusing to me.
So when I tried using Grok to make comics, the words are all random squiggly gibberish.
Okay.
But ChatGPT can make full context paragraphs and everything. Yeah, wild stuff. All right. What have we here? Amtrue says Baltimore, Chicago, New York, Seattle, L.A., San Fran, Atlanta, Denver, Portland, all gone. Corrupt beyond saving. That sounds like some Ra's al Ghul stuff.
Ra's al Ghul.
Raish. There you go. Ra's al Ghul. I was testing you.
I think the question, I think we've discussed this on the show before, and something that's, I think, an enjoyable question for people to ask. Are cities an outdated technology?
Yes.
Okay, it's fun to discuss, Tim, not just have a one-word answer. My God, yes. But it's something germane, because back in the day, if you want to get good music, all this stuff together, now you've got the internet, so like, yeah.
I knew a guy named Jermaine once.
Is that right?
Indeed.
You don't think the proximity people, like the proximity that cities bring, is something that
That is something. That's an argument for it, yeah.
Yeah, because
Very
I
much
think
so.
so the argument against remote working is you get, when you have time together, you'll bounce ideas off each other more regularly, and you'll have creative ideas. Like I think Ben Shapiro talks about the Liberal Tears mug that they've sold bajillions of. That came because they were standing in the office or something like that, and someone said it or whatever. But
Yeah.
the point is the proximity mattered.
Yes, it
and
does.
when it comes to like writing songs, there is a very different process when you're emailing ideas back and
course, I'm
forth,
sure.
as opposed to being
Jamming
in the
together.
same
Yeah,
room
of course,
trying to come up with
of
ideas.
course, yeah.
So
My friends, we're going to go to that members-only call-in show, uncensored, over at rumble.com/Timcast IRL. So head over there, become a member of Rumble Premium using promo code TIM10.
You can watch us discuss the bet with Roseanne.
Indeed. And other naughty things that, not for the kids. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Michael, do you want to shout anything out?
Glad to be back here on April Fools. Michael Malice on X. I will be back here in a month with my next book, and I'll tell Tim about it after the show.
All right, on.
It'll be a lot of fun.
That was a fun one, Michael.
Thank you.
You can find me online at Shane Cashman. I host Inverted World Live every Sunday on YouTube and Rumble. And I got to shout out the Hoteps for having me at the Grifties last weekend. It was a blast, and keep an eye out for that video soon.
Michael, you're always an absolute delight to be around, and I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding around. Normally, I just go right into my spiel. I really enjoy having your wit and wisdom around. So I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. Our new record is called Anti-Fragile. You can check it out on YouTube, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Spotify, Pandora, and Deezer. Don't forget the left lane is for crime.
We will see you all over at rumble.com/Timcast IRL in about 30 seconds. Thanks for hanging out.